Hey guys, welcome to part 13 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Hyuga Clan. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 66. Escape. Recap. Naruto and Raito were sent out to improve the defenses of a governor's castle. Meanwhile, Team 8 is looking for one of Jiraiya's contacts in the same region. Unfortunately, Zenshi the Chiji, governor, has greater ambitions, and hired two familiar Akatsuki members. Assassination arc. Escape. Oi, Itachi, what the hell is happening? Kisame exclaimed when the Uchiha suddenly collapsed. I told you not to push yourself so damn far. In the seconds which had passed in the real world since Itachi caught Naruto with the Tsukuyomi, Terasu had grabbed and attached his prosthetic leg. With Kisame distracted, the somewhat less bulky prisoner quickly activated one of the ceiling arrays he had ridden over the past weeks, as he had contemplated methods of escaping this prison. After all, that leg could be used for more than hiding a secret stash of marked man sake from his wife. Blinded by a sudden explosion of light, exuded by the activated seal on the fake leg, Kisame wildly waved his arms around. His left hand touched Terasu, while the one-legged man moved past him in order to grab the half-conscious Uzumaki by his shoulders, but Kisame couldn't hold on. The encounter with the Hyuga girl had left its mark. Kisame could heal himself quickly, but he had always hated the Juken style of taijutsu. It always left the chakra coils so damn sore, hence the numb hand. Naruto still felt like that darned crow was wriggling its way down his throat when he realized that Terasu was dragging him out of the cell. Then the memory feedback kicked in, as his clones had popped due to their boss being caught in the Tsukuyomi, and he knew that Isuzu and the children were approaching them as quickly as their civilian legs could carry them. Fuka was out of the castle, and he hoped she was smart enough to run. But right now, Naruto was facing another problem. Kurenai and Team 8 were locked up in the next chamber. Damn it. How on earth did this get out of control this quickly? He grunted, feeling weak from the illusionary ordeal. Why do my missions always go batshit insane like this? Lift your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. What? Bewildered, Naruto stared at the one-legged Terasu who had the prosthetic leg strapped on again. Lift your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. The reddish-haired man repeated. It is the safeguard I installed in the seals. If anyone caught by my subjugating scrolls hears that sentence, the jutsu will be broken. That's why I picked such a weird line, knowing it wouldn't be uttered otherwise. Sound legit, Naruto mumbled weakly. Okay, you guys follow me. A locked door isn't going to hold back a monster like Kisame for long. There are two people up there, Karen had suddenly hissed through her teeth. They are watching us. Karen. Hinata remembered herself asking, where? Who? Unlike the genin, Kurenai had immediately realized the danger of the situation. Karen could accurately estimate how strong the people that were watching them were, and for her to be this alarmed would imply that these two strangers were powerful. In hindsight, Hinata wondered why she hadn't seen that. Activating her Byakugan, Hinata saw how two people, one possessing chakra reserves even more massive than the other, came rushing in. The one with the smaller reserves lunged at Kurenai, while the other, a fist hit Kiba's solar plexus, knocking him over, instantaneously knocking him out. Angered by the defeat of his partner, Akamaru charged at the blue-skinned man. The man merely laughed, catching the pup. Some kind of small-scale water jutsu removed the impetuous pup from the battle, although Hinata could see the poor ninkin wasn't hurt in any way which threatened his life, just forced into unconsciousness. It was a mystery to Hinata why, for some reason, the shark-like shinobi wasn't aiming to kill them. Looking closer, Hinata saw a slashed-through Kurigakure Hitai 8. A missing nin. And what is that ominous thing which he is wielding? A blade. No, it is too massive, too thick to truly be called a blade. Hinata had tried to resist, but he was too fast. Before she could help, he swung the bandage blade-like object sideward, smashing away Karen with a casual ease that was simply frightening. But, again, the man pulled his punches. Karen was merely unconscious. However, the impact had wounded her slightly, as a small tickle of blood was running down the side of her head. Man, and here I thought I held back enough, and then man cursed something under his breath which sounded suspiciously similar to Itachi will be mad. Itachi. Uchiha Itachi. The one who massacred the Uchiha clan, whose actions led to Sasuke's betrayal and the subsequent deaths of Choji and Shino. Her all-seeing eyes immediately confirmed it. The man fighting her sensei had the Sharingan. Things were looking extremely bad. Why are you doing this? She asked the shark-like assailant. Money, girly, just plain old boring Ryo. The blue-skinned man bared his pointed teeth in a grin. Hyuga. Let's see if you can relieve me of my boredom. He swung at her, relatively slowly when compared to how he had struck down Karen, but that underestimation came back to bite him. Hinata crouched down, ducking underneath the horizontal slash. Before he could correct himself, still overextending, Hinata jumped up within his guard. Quick as greased lightning, she tapped him on every tenketsu she could see in his sword-wielding arm. The result was instantaneous. The horizontal slash had been moving away from him, and losing power in his arm, he swung the weapon away. It slipped through his numbed hand. The other arm was fully functional, however, and Hinata saw through the back of her head that she had to dodge, which she did, halfway. The punch only grazed her shoulder, but the power behind it made her wince. If that fist had scored a direct hit, Hinata knew that this man was far too strong for her to fight. Yet, with Kiba, Karen, and Akamaru unconscious, she couldn't just selfishly try to escape either. That she had even managed to disable his right arm was already a huge surprise to her. Honest and humble about her own skill as always, Hinata immediately accepted the fact that those hits had landed solely because he had been underestimating her, something which he was no longer doing. Guarded, she looked at her opponent. She expected him to be angry, enraged, due to the damage she had inflicted. Oddly, he only seemed to become happier and happier. Not bad for a little genin, girly, he laughed. I'm impressed. Very impressed. It's been a while since I've been hit by one of your clan, it still hurts like a bitch. Sorry, she responded reflexively. Her eyes widened when she realized what she was saying. Of course she wasn't sorry for hurting an enemy who had just ambushed her. Sorry. Ha. You stay polite, even in spite of all this. The man smiled broadly. You've got some guts. I'm sure those eyes of yours have already shown you your odds. And still, such honesty, it moves my heart. Enemy or not, overwhelmingly powerful or not, Hyuga Hinata did not like it very much when people were mocking her. Her shoulders stiffened, the left one still throbbing, and her eyes narrowed. A Hyuga with activated Byakugan glaring at you was considered intimidating by many, not by this man, though. It merely amused him. With all these Konoha shinobi around, he chuckled. Why don't we play a little game? Game. Yeah, I call it guts and glory. He extended his left arm, and his blade, Hinata didn't know what to think about it. Was it some kind of sentient creature which he had been swinging around? It crawled back to him, and he lifted it with his left hand, followed by a few practice swings. Was it even truly a blade? Or was it some weird, summoned creature? I'll give you two choices, and you make a decision. That sounds simple enough, right? Hinata nodded cautiously, not sure whether this man was insane or not. His non-standard physique made rather him hard to read. Good. Then here is option 1. I'll cut off your right arm, to repay you for what you did to me, he said cheerfully. Hinata paled. And option 2. In option 2 you remain perfectly intact, and can walk away freely, he gestured around. Hinata nearly sighed in relief. In return, however, your friends will be losing their right arms, though all. Option 1. He blinked. Usually people started protesting at this point, trying to find ways to escape from making the choice. It was entertaining for him to see them squirm. He hadn't met anyone who could make a choice so swiftly, not to mention with such a bland tone of voice as if it was the only choice worth considering for her. You sure about that? Yes. He saw only the slightest of hesitations in her movements, yet she lifted her right arm without making a fuss. His sword fell down, and Hinata closed her eyes. Looking down at the unconscious girl, Kisame wondered whether he was growing soft. He could have just cut her arm off, yet instead he had merely knocked her out. That honesty, that willingness to sacrifice herself for her friends, it was a rare thing. Interesting. Many people just self-righteously yak about honor and courage, but only when they aren't facing a real threat. Yet a feeble-looking girl like this would pick the first option, he hummed. Encountering truly honest people in his line of work was a rarity. He wondered how long she'd stay like this. Probably not long, he mumbled to himself. The hidden villages talk a lot of shit about sacrifice and enduring, but in the end they're all the same. Deceit, secrets, betrayal, everyone pursues some kind of hidden agenda, an agenda in which sacrifice is always translated into sacrificing others, and never self-sacrifice. Fucking world of lies, he spat. How many of his own comrades had he slain for a cause which turned out to be a fake? The unconscious girl, naturally, did not respond in any way. Kisame sighed. Sometimes he was wondering whether Itachi was right. Sure, he was not the kind of mindless, dishonorable piece of mercenary trash that many thought he was. He had his own peculiar code of honor, and had a strong antipathy against cowards. Not that many people knew him like that, only a few could see beyond his reputation. Regardless, Kisame did not see himself as a good person. And yet, Itachi had told him on several occasions that he was much better than he gave himself credit for. Was it a joke? Kisame had trouble deciphering that stoic expression. I guess you'll end up disillusioned as well. I wonder which path you'll choose when that day arrives, Kisame grimaced. Would you strive for a world without deceit, even if that world is a glorified lie in itself? Blissfully unaware of her opponent's thoughts, or even the passing of time itself, Hyuga Hinata remained unconscious. Time passed, before she, her mind clouded, her body numbed, realized at some level that she was slowly starting to wake. Her groggy mind had yet to fully realize that, though. When it did, the numbed state of her body triggered her memory. How did she end up like this? Her eyes flew open when she came to the realization that she still had her arms, both firmly attached to her body. The second thing she realized was why she had been waking up. Someone was poking her. Where are we going? Terasu picked up his second son, so that they could move a bit quicker. My friends are being held prisoner. We're going to free them. By that time, Itachi and Kisame should have left already. What makes you think they won't come after us? Terasu doubted that the boys' plan was sane. With them going down, they would be trapped if those two missing nin decided to go after them. They're not after me, nor do they care about you guys. How on earth can you say that? Those guys are some of the worst criminals in the world. They'd kill us just for the fun of it. Let's just say I had a very interesting conversation with Itachi, Naruto stated grimly. However, he was still thoroughly confused by what Itachi had told him. How was his swallowing a crow going to change Sasuke the next time he met him? The Uchiha clan had intended to rise up against Konoha, an event which Itachi had stopped, secretly at the orders of Konoha itself. Naruto realized that a civil war would have been a catastrophe that would have torn the entire nation apart. It was just like the invasion of Suna, an event that would have weakened Konoha to the point where it could have triggered a world war. But Sasuke, what was Itachi thinking? Ah well, I'll wait and see what happens next time I meet the Tem. If nothing else, I'll make him pay for Shino and Choji. And this time there won't be an Orochimaru around to rescue his ass. Cycle of hatred or not, if I would just forgive every criminal, the world would never truly know peace. Just like when I had to protect Hinata-chan, I am sometimes required to do wicked things to stop more wicked things from happening. I've got to look past the naivety. Jiraiya aimed for peace, and Naruto, with his past, wished that no other would have to live a life like his or a life like Gaara had to endure. Or Sasuke's, now that Naruto came to understand him a little better. But when he thought about it, and considered the lives of his closest friends, Hinata could have ended up dying at the hands of her own family if not for his actions. Karen had woken up in a burned-down village, not even knowing who she was before Tsunade found out about her heritage. There was Tsunade herself, and her tragic history, and Jiraiya had undoubtedly faced many hardships too. There was Kakashi, whose father committed suicide in shame because he had rescued his fellow shinobi rather than completing his mission. The list of people who were in some way damaged by the shinobi world went on and on. Our world is fucked up. I wish I could just force it to be different, but using force would only make things worse. If Ero Sennin couldn't find the answer on how to stop the cycle of hatred, then how is a murderer like me supposed to find it? Naruto held no illusions about his past mistakes. He had acted as judge, jury, and executioner, believing his sense for negative emotions was infallible. He did not regret saving Hinata, yet by targeting those who had become victims of the real perpetrators, Naruto had done little to change the situation. Hinata had shown him the error of his way, shown that people could change, if they were given the chance, and if they were willing to change. If someone would be capable of finding an answer, it would be Hinata-chan, not me. I've got too much blood on my hands. He felt exhausted, too exhausted to waste more chakra. So, Naruto unsealed the bow which Tenten had given him for his birthday, sneaked up to the samurai, and roughly knocked the man out. Naruto was tired, and knew the man didn't hold any particularly bad intentions, but still he had to do it. His team was there, his sensei. Even if Naruto wasn't officially part of Team 8 anymore, he still saw Kurenai as his sensei, as she had filled the role far better than Kakashi ever had. She'd been there with her wisdom, even when he'd barely been willing to listen. In contrast, Kakashi only seemed to have paid attention when it was already too late, when things already had gone wrong. Then again, Naruto had to admit that that was when the rage and paranoia of the Kyuubi had blinded him, deafened him. Perhaps Kakashi had tried, in his own lazy ways, yet Naruto had failed to notice it. He didn't know whether it was a side effect of Tsukuyomi, but Naruto felt his headache grow worse, to the point where it seemed to blacken his vision. His right hand throbbed as if he had held the appendage in boiling water. In short, he had no patience to go search for keys for a third time. His chakra-conducting bow just as easily broke the lock. Screw patience. Relax. Karen hushed her. Everyone is fine, apart from a few bruises. Kiba and Akamaru are both fast asleep, though. And I can't get Kurenai-sensei to wake up. Can you look after her? These cuffs make it impossible for me to dispel genjutsu. Where are we? Hinata mumbled. In a prison. Karen frowned, as if that was completely obvious. In hindsight, Hinata admitted that it was. The thick door, with bars instead of windows, was a dead giveaway. The four dusty, old bunks and the solid rock walls only completed the stereotypical image of a dungeon cell. Oh, Hinata muttered dumbly, only now starting to gain some awareness of her surroundings. What happened? We got trashed. Thoroughly, the Uzumaki girl grit her teeth, desperately trying to keep her nerves in check. Those two monsters beat us without breaking a sweat, and then took us here. I woke up when that fish guy dragged us down here. Some kind of underground facility, she clarified. It could be Takeda Castle, where Nisan is, but that's just a guess. These guys could have taken us to another place. Why would they imprison us? Hinata tried to ignore the dread she was starting to feel. The fate of imprisoned kunoichi, especially those carrying Kekkei Genkai within their blood, was not a gentle one. Not sure. I just hope. Well, you know, Karen grimaced. If that's the case, I'd rather you killed me. Unlike the rest of us, you weren't tied with chakra-suppressing cuffs. I don't know why, but for some reason the fish guy said you earned that with some bet. Why would he say that? I don't know. Hinata was rendered speechless. It took her a while to sort out her thoughts before she could give a coherent answer. He asked me what I wanted. To have my arm cut off or not. Right. Karen frowned. Obviously, you'd choose to not have your arm cut off. What kind of choice? No, I chose to have my arm cut off, Hinata interrupted. Because, he gave me the choice between my arm and those of you, Kiba-kun, and Kurenai-sensei. You'd sacrifice yourself, for us. The Uzumaki was taken aback. In her world, such things did not happen. Everyone was out there for themselves. As much as she wanted to believe in the ideals of her new home and her new family, Uzumaki Karen deep down still remained that lonely girl who had grown up living on the streets. Why? There were many things which Hinata could say, many things that came to mind. Because that was what a shinobi should do. Sounded like a cheap cliché, and wasn't really true either. It wasn't because of something as detached as her clan's honor, either, as Hinata didn't think in those terms. What felt more like a good answer to her was, because that is what Naruto-kun would do, but she ultimately decided not to say that. It sounded too much like a fangirl, and that was the last thing she wanted to be. So instead, she said, because you are my friends. Hinata knew it was a cliché, knew it sounded cheesy, but at least it could be said with honesty. Kiba, Akamaru, and Karen were her friends, people she treasured, even more so since she had unwillingly learned how it felt when you lost friends. And Kurenai, Hinata often thought of her sensei as some kind of older sister, more a sibling than a sensei. Oddly, Hinata felt a bit saddened at that, as it made her wonder whether Hanabi could ever look at her, the way she looked at Kurenai. She guessed not. Hanabi was doing things by the book, following their clan's doctrine to the letter. Even if it meant hiding her true self, under the looming threat of the caged bird seal, Hanabi worked hard to appear as the flawless Hyuga. Naturally, that meant that she had remained rather distant from her sister, as Hinata was nothing like what her clan would deem as a perfect Hyuga. At the least, she was not perfect for the way things were now. Hitomi and Suzaku were slowly showing Hinata that the clan of her birth was not the clan as it was supposed to be. It made her wonder how she'd fare if she was compared to her clan's old standards, from before the coup that led to the division of the main and branch families, from before the Hyuga clan had joined Konoha. Her mother and her summon taught her about the lost ways of the Hyuga, showing how far the clan had strayed from its path. Had it not caused so much suffering, the way the overly traditional clan had discarded its history could have been deemed ironic. But such things were irrelevant at the moment when Hinata had made her decision. At that time, Hinata had compared her own well-being against those of her friends, and weighed her options. Well, one could talk about options, but Hyuga Hinata never even considered the other path an option. A conscious part in the back of her head told her that the guilt and pain which she would have felt from causing suffering to her friends would have been worse, far worse, because she would never have been able to forgive herself. A red blur of hair stopped her mind from wandering off even further, as Karen hugged Hinata firmly. "Thank you," the girl muttered, in a shaky tone of voice that left Hinata wondering whether she was crying. Karen-chan. "Thank you, for seeing someone like me as your friend." Karen took a deep breath, gathering her wits. Being beaten and imprisoned had already left her in a fragile state of mind, enough for Hinata's declaration to break the floodgates for a second. But being kunoichi, having to defend the honor of the Uzumaki clan on top of that, Karen told herself to restrain her emotions at least, for now. "Shall we wake the others, and try to find a way out of this mess?" Nodding, Hinata moved to remove the chains from Karen's wrists and ankles. It still left Karen exhausted, as the suppressing effect of the cuffs left someone practically drained of their chakra. It would take a little while before she'd have full access to her chakra again. Regardless, she managed to wake Kiba. It was not through any subtle move, dispelling the illusion that kept him asleep, or anything. No. Inuzuka Kiba woke up with a red handprint on his face, although he was too sleepy to realize why his cheek hurt. Hinata, by contrast, simply freed Kurenai, who quickly gathered all the information she needed. This was the difference between an inexperienced genin and a jonin, a seasoned kunoichi like Kurenai. Their assailants had been part of Akatsuki, which made their situation dire, far too dire for them to waste time with idle chatter. So, while Kiba was still rubbing the sleep out of his eyes, carrying Akamaru on top of his head, who stubbornly refused to open his eyes, Kurenai had already formulated a plan of action. It was a plan that was thrown out of the proverbial window. There were no real windows available the very moment the door of their cell broke to pieces. A heavy blow had shattered the door, a thick slab of oak and metal, to bits. The person who stepped into view was a familiar one. He hadn't had that much time to practice his bojutsu, but breaking through such a door wasn't much of a challenge, regardless not when it was so easy to channel chakra through the weapon. Naruto-kun. Hinata was the first to respond. Verbally, at least. Karen threw herself at him only a second later. "Karen," Kurenai barked, warning the girl not to waste time. "How? Akatsuki is here, you shouldn't be here, Naruto." "I already met Itachi, sensei." Naruto smiled tiredly, as he patted Karen on her head. He and his buddy Jaws weren't here for little old me, in spite of them being Akatsuki. "For you." A man spoke up, standing behind Naruto. He looked with distrust at the four, to him, unfamiliar shinobi. But Hinata knew him. Based on the descriptions they had received their mission, she saw that this was the man they had been looking for. Terasu did not know that, though, and he frowned. What's up with this bunch? And why would they say that those I'm a Jinchuriki, Naruto said offhandedly. An Akatsuki is a group which tried to capture me before. Guys, this is Terasu, and over there are his wife and their boys, he pointed behind him, before turned to the family. And this is Team 8, led by Sarutobi Kurenai. This is the team which Hokage sent out with orders to locate you when he grew worried when you didn't check in for so long. Also, they're my old team, so you can drop your suspicion unless you don't trust me either. Well, I thank you all for your efforts, Terasu bowed stiffly, not losing sight of them. In spite of Naruto's words, he remained wary of them. Or was it perhaps due to Naruto's admission that he was a Jinchuriki? Terasu knew all too well what a Jinchuriki was, having seen I was Jinchuriki in action during the war. He had not heard of Akatsuki, but he wondered what kind of organization would chase the Biju. Terasu had yet to hear the news of the events that had transpired during the last Chunin exams. Pleasantries aside, isn't it better for the lot of us to haul ass? Itachi and the tall man with the crazily huge chakra reserves are going up, Karen reported, after Kurenai gave her an expectant look. It seems they're indeed not here for you, Ni-san. No, they're not. Itachi didn't strike me as the kind of person who would lie about such things, Naruto chuckled. Let's get out. We need to free Rado and the others. And if that Zenshi shows up, I'm going to imprison him. Naruto, you can't. No, you can't, Kurenai-sensei, Naruto cut her off. Or I should say that you shouldn't. But this Chiji compromised my mission, attempted to enslave my Jonin guard, and has undoubtedly been plotting against the daimyo of Hinokuni. Supplying solid evidence that he hired Akatsuki will be difficult, but in my case, Naruto pointed at Terasu. I've got solid evidence. Exhibit a reporting for duty, Terasu saluted sarcastically. But I won't be much evidence if I wind up dead, kid. And if you get my family killed, I'm not going to be too friendly either. I'll destroy the entire nation if I have to, he threatened. You think a few samurai are going to stop us? Naruto smirked. We're way more awesome than those guys, so don't worry. We might not need to worry about such thing. Unless we hurry, Karen suddenly urged. Nei-chan. The castle had suddenly become busy like a beehive. Samurai were running down, and servants were evacuated. In a matter of minutes, Takeda Castle stood at full alert. Every prison door was secured by a seal. The previous Chiji of this prefecture was a rather fond of Fuinjutsu and its many applications, and did not neglect using them on his prisons. The samurai had gone of full alert when one of the seals was activated, signaling that one of the prison doors had been broken, and shortly after that another signal flared up. Zenshi had sent out his samurai, and now waited with his wife in the main hall, waiting for his men to bring the prisoners or to flee if those mercenaries turned out to have betrayed him. Supporting a rather worn-out Itachi, Hoshigaki Kisame was not amused. A little brat and a cripple had gotten the jump on them somehow. To make things worse, those pests had imprisoned him. The infamous monster of the hidden mist was still fuming about it, even though his legendary blade had broken through the feeble wood without any trouble. But rather than catching up with the brat and the cripple, over 20 samurai were waiting for them. Damn it. Those pests went downstairs, Kisame growled. I'm going to kill that brat, damn it. Kisame. Don't act rashly, Itachi sighed. Pain-sama wouldn't want the boy to die now, and we cannot afford a direct confrontation with Konohagakure either. As if the fuck-up of Orochimaru and Sasori didn't open their eyes, Kisame scoffed. They should be aware that it wasn't just some random incident that they tried to capture two Jinchuriki at once. The chance that they are aware of our goals is a negligible risk, compared to the threat it would be to the organization if we captured the boy at this point. Konoha would divert all of its resources to hunt us down, Itachi told the half-truth he had prepared. He didn't want Naruto caught or incapacitated, not now. Not to mention what Pain would think if you tried to kill one of the Jinchuriki. Fine. The swordsman spat, ignoring the veiled threat in Itachi's words. It was obvious enough that Itachi really wouldn't allow him attack the boy. But I'm really annoyed right now. The bandages fell from Samahata, revealing the series of downward-facing scales running along the entirety of its length. Hey, Itachi, did that guy pay us? He did. Then why are they here? I do not know. You think he's trying to double-cross us? That is possible, Itachi shrugged, though he thought it was more likely that these men were drawing their weapons out of fear than due to orders. You think he'll be able to keep our identity a secret? You ask me if I trust a politician. Itachi raised an eyebrow, though he otherwise remained indifferent. Even if those samurai were the ones who started it, pointing their blades at him and Kisame, Itachi could not find in himself to care. He had seen enough of this region to know that these samurai were merely glorified thugs, hired by the Chiji to enforce his control over the region. Whether those men were simply stupid, or the Chiji was foolish enough to attempt to double-cross them, in the end it mattered little. Kisame was annoyed, and had a habit of killing things when that happened, so he was simply seeking an excuse. Very well, do whatever you want. You're right. We shouldn't leave even more loose ends. Kisame gave a predatory grin at which half of the samurai turned and fled. Only one of them acted differently. Huh, what's this? A scroll. Fuck that. I'm not here to read a damn scroll. Not that he could, as Itachi threw a kunai through the scroll before Kisame could even consider opening it. Naruto stopped, appalled. What the hell happened here? Hiba paled at the sight, Karen froze up, and even Kurenai looked sickened. The samurai had been slaughtered. Some were torn apart, some drowned, and others, well, even Kurenai had to guess at what had happened to those poor men. It was as if they had been blown apart, hit at close range by a cannon. I've heard stories of Hoshigaki Kisame, Kurenai whispered. But I've never seen anything like this. That man truly is a monster. He surely had the face for it. Naruto frowned. I'm glad Itachi stopped him when he wanted to swing his blade at me. I don't think I would have lasted long in a battle against that guy. No kidding, Hiba mumbled, softly pushing against Karen's shoulder in an attempt to get her back to her senses. It looked a bit awkward, but Kiba still wasn't really used to the more delicate interaction with others. The Inuzuka pack was close-knitted, yet everything but subtle. Usually, Akamaru would help him escaping such matters, who didn't get cheered up by the little pup. But the little dog was currently whimpering inside Kiba's coat. Why did Itachi stop him from attacking you? Hinata looked a bit greenish. Then again, with her Byakugan activated, she, unfortunately, had a far better view on the path of corpses which Kisame had left when he barged through the samurai in search of his way out. The sight held a morbid fascination, and she could barely look away. Were these the actions of the man who had spared her life? It makes no sense. Why did he spare us, yet do this? I do not know. Kurenai shook her head, as if trying to shake off the dreadful sight before her. But rather than making guesses about that, I'd say we need to move before they change their minds and return to finish the job. Naruto, do you know why they didn't attack you? Itachi had other plans, was all that Naruto wished to share with them. The truth, if what Itachi had told him was indeed the truth, behind the Uchiha massacre was extremely dangerous knowledge. It was the type that people would kill to keep it covered up. Hence it was not knowledge he wanted to burden his precious friends with. Where is Rado? I hope he survived this madness. I cannot see, Hinata stammered. There is too much, too many. It doesn't matter, Hinata-chan. Just calm down. Nei-chan. Naruto tried to comfort the Hyuga before he turned to Karen. Oi, Nei-chan. Yes, Karen mumbled with a tiny voice. It was as if she saw Choji again, in every torn corpse. Can you find Rado? Karen looked a bit sheepish at him, before she realized what he acts. Using her inner eye, for a moment, she located the chakra signature that belonged to Rado. His chakra was strangely muddled. There was hardly any difference compared to normal, but somehow he seemed, something was wrong. If she had not seen his chakra so many times before, Karen would never have noticed the difference. It was so marginal, but there was definitely a tiny change in the color of Rado's chakra, which she reported. I know, was Naruto's response to that news. He is held with a genjutsu. But where is he? He's at the top floor, Karen pointed up. There are a man and a woman with him, both civilians, as well as a couple of guards and a servant. Zenchi and Eiko, the Chiji and his wife, Naruto grimaced. I think you guys should stay out of this. They compromised my mission, so as a Chunin of Konoha, I have the right to act in Konoha's defense. But I don't want to drag your clans into the potential fallout. Lifting your weapons against a relative of the daimyo remains risky, but I have no other choice in the matter. Remember the phrase, kiddo, it should free that radio guy, Terasu urged, not having bothered to remember Rato's name. Are you certain about this? Kurenai frowned. I know how to free Rato, and those samurai are just cannon fodder, Naruto smiled confidently. I'll win, believe it. If you can do all that, would it not be better to imprison him? Kurenai countered. No, Naruto shook his head. Terasu. He gestured the man to speak. I've been forced to work for the Chiji, and wrote quite a few genjutsu scrolls. All those affected by that scroll are forced to obey the Chiji, Terasu clarified. With the jutsu being nigh undetectable, there is no telling how many pawns the man has already gathered, especially within the upper echelons of this country. Any formal prosecution would likely be pointless if he has infiltrators in court as well. That is precisely why I need to kill Zenchi, Kurenai-sensei, Naruto agreed. It may not be my orders, but this situation is too big a risk to ignore. And as someone told me, shinobi sometimes have no other choice but to walk the path with the least amount of casualties. Your mission was to locate Terasu. You have found him, and now you have the opportunity to free him. That is what you should report. The Sarutobi, Hyuga, and Inuzuka clans should not be involved in the execution of the Chiji. Sensei. Hinata looked up to her leader, teacher, and example. But Kurenai remained silent. Regardless of the conditions, targeting the family of the daimyo remained a grave offense. Reading the report which had just been brought into his office, Danzo sipped some tea. He knew that the new Hokage, underneath it all, was a shrewd man. But plots like these, turning to the next page of the report, Danzo nodded. He was right, it wasn't just Jiraiya's idea. Regardless, it was a risky move, and Jiraiya had put the Jinchuriki right at the heart of it all. Was it a test? Was it a show of faith? No, it is more likely due to the boy's ability to sense negative emotions, Danzo considered. Which would imply that Jiraiya didn't trust the orders he received either. Interesting. It was definitely an angle which deserved more research. However, the priorities had shifted now. He needed to speed up his plans. The plans for the infiltration were already finished. Get in and out within a time span of 3 minutes. It should be enough. Danzo knew they were promised 5 undisturbed minutes, but he didn't really trust that promise. Putting aside the report, he opened a drawer and took out one of the files, one marked, classified. Opening it, he stared at the picture of Uzumaki Naruto. A little lower, he saw photos of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina, as well as the boy's former guardian Hyuga Haruki and godfather Jiraiya. Danzo frowned a little. This file had to be updated. The boy had already been promoted to Chunin, and his sister had to be added as well. While they were not that closely related by blood, he and Uzumaki Karen referred to each other as siblings. It was a useful angle. Flipping through the pages, Danzo paid little attention to the copies of every academy record of the boy. Some grades were surprisingly high, but on average they were just unremarkable, making Danzo wonder why none of the teachers had gotten the bright idea that the boy had been hiding his true potential. Well, one man could have been aware, Jiraiya's current secretary, Yumino Iruka, but that mattered little now. What mattered now was getting this boy within his ranks. Danzo coveted not just him, but also his knowledge. He couldn't be blamed for not trying, but Danzo had been unable to find the scrolls and books left by the boy's parents. Undoubtedly, it had been either Jiraiya or Hiruzen that had immediately evacuated the treasure of knowledge, only for it to wind up in the hands of their son. What a waste, Danzo thought. The knowledge could have been used far better if it were to be distributed to certain trustworthy units within the village. In spite of some of its weaknesses, Fuinjutsu undoubtedly formed a remarkably strong tool for Danzo's purposes. For centuries, the Uzumaki clan had been feared, yet every attack had resulted in nothing. With barrier upon barrier, defense upon defense, an army of Fuinjutsu users could turn any random shed into an unassailable bastion. The Uzumaki could have ruled the world, yet their pacifistic nature had been their undoing, Danzo knew. Rather than wiping out their enemies while all the other clans had been at each other's throats, they had used Fuinjutsu as a weapon of defense. It took geniuses such as Senju Tobarama and Namikaze Minato to turn Fuinjutsu into an offensive weapon. While the former had always been overshadowed by his older brother, both had carved their legacies into this world. Danzo was no fool. He knew very well that he would not be able to fill their shoes, but he was certain about one thing. Uzumaki Naruto had that capability. Sadly, the boy was crippled by his own emotions, which caused the Kyuubi to slowly corrupt him. Danzo knew that his old friend Sarutobi Hiruzen had given his life to delay that process, but regardless of that sacrifice, it was a process that could not be stopped unless the boy learned to fully control his emotions. Jinchuriki have always been tools that have to be treated with caution. Their Biju always try to break free, compromising their Jinchuriki as shinobi. But, if used properly, those tools can still be extremely useful. It was a good thing that the Kyuubi's only known weakness was the Sharingan. All that was left for him was to drive the boy into a corner, and this situation offered the perfect opportunity to do just that. Bonus. The spoiler must pay. Naruto. She blinked. The doorbell had rung, and she wondered who it could be. All alone. Yeah, Karen Nichan is still at home. His reply was quite peculiar by itself, but the twitchy way in which he stood there made her wonder what was wrong. A prank. Kinda. I see, so you've come here to flee your home. Yes, Soom-san. The young blonde scratched the back of his head, obviously feeling awkward. Cut the formalities, the Inuzuka. Alpha. Grunted. You're not at the Hyuga compound anymore, so act like it. As you command, Soom-sama. He saluted cheekily, an action he immediately regretted. He could swear that this woman was able to kill someone with a single glare. And that's why you've gotten into whatever mess it was you created this time, Soom sighed. You're almost as bad as Kiba. More composed, though. HMPF, he's out in the back, doing chores. If you make a bigger mess than Kiba already created, I'll send Kuromaru after ya. She laughed that peculiar a bark-like laugh. Naruto knew one thing for sure. Soom was scary. Although, the fact that she hired Kiba to do D-ranked missions spoke in her favor, as she could have just made Kiba do them anyway. But with his punishment, which Kiba and the others had gotten due to the clandestine Sasuke retrieval mission, Kiba still had quite a few missions to go which wouldn't be paid out in full. In a sense, Soom had alleviated Kiba's punishment. Yes, Naruto gulped. He wasn't going to take any risks. Sure, Soom was kind in her own blunt way, but that didn't mean Naruto was going to underestimate her promise of sending her ninkin after him. You know what to do. Chi meowed to her troops. Yes, boss, asterisk the three cats responded. Ever since the Uchiha incident, Sudo had refused to follow Chi's command. Torching down part of the neighborhood in which the cat lived didn't sit well with the tomcat, to put it mildly. Both the ironing board and the window seat cushion had fallen victim, as the vengeful cat had decided to barf on them. And Chi was sure Sudo would start do worse things if she didn't halt him. The fat Sakana and the proud of his tail Siro from the Yamanaka household were present, as was the rebellious Tora, who still kept running away from her owner, the wife of the daimyo. Tora already was the bane of every young genin team, and things had even grown worse for the poor children after Tora had been trained as a ninako. Including Chi, the four of them had a plan, a meticulous and evil plan. It was a plan that was infallible, unfortunately for their victims. If any of them had known it, they would warn the other. Abandon your posts. Flee, flee for your lives. But it was already too late, the die was cast. All that remained for Chi and her merry band of mischievous cats was leaving the compound in an orderly fashion, ensuring that no trace of their presence would be left. Of course, this was no small feat, considering they had just broken into a compound filled with ninkin, who could smell them from a mile away. After that, they would enjoy the show that was about to unfold. Thanks, dude. Kiba wiped the sweat of his forehead. If not for you, I'd be doing this stuff all day. Well, shadow clones are useful for practically every situation, Naruto chuckled, though his mirth left when a clone punched him against his arm. Speak for yourself, we're not slaves. The clone stuck out its tongue before it walked away, throwing away the garbage which they had just collected. Only you, Naruto, only you could have rebellious clones, Kiba laughed. They truly are prefect copies. Hey, I'm not that bad. Please, the Inuzuka wagged his finger left and right, as if he was reprimanding the Uzumaki. The way in which he imitated Iruka was almost perfect apart from the huge grin, that is. You never listen, Naruto. Academy was boring. Kiba. And don't act like you were a saint back then. Well, at least I wasn't all gloom and doom. Seriously, that Kyuubi messed you up big time. I'm glad you've changed after your seal was redone. Thanks, I guess. Naruto squinted, trying to determine whether Kiba just insulted or complimented him. I just do what I think is right, though. Yeah, but you don't take any shit from others. I mean, you blatantly refuse to listen when people spout, follow the orders and obey my commands, and that sorta crap, and have managed to get away with it as well, Kiba chuckled. Mum would kill me if I acted like that at home. I'm sure she means well. Naruto suppressed a sigh. His initial response would have been to tell Kiba to be happy he had a mother, unlike him or many others, but that wouldn't be fair. Though, yeah, I should have been less paranoid. Jumping to conclusions only leads to screw-ups, you know. You don't need to tell me that, Kiba laughed out loudly. But, wait, Akamaru. What's going on, boy? He seems drunk, Naruto remarked, after Akamaru wobbled towards Kiba. You just gave the dogs water, right? No, one of your clones did, Kiba frowned. Don't you remember? Hey, I got the memories of a few dozen clones doing chores, and you expect me to sort out their memories after they popped. Naruto muttered. You can't, what is that noise? Oh crap, don't tell me that the water was somehow messed up, Kiba paled. Random noises, of which many sounded like stuff being broken, and a lot of barking was the answer he got. Some of the barks were unusually cheerful, while others, well, the fight that developed amongst the dogs drew someone's attention. Boys, what the hell is going on over there? Both Kiba and Naruto froze. Kiba, if it was even scientifically possible, was growing even paler. Nothing, mum. Kiba made a crucial mistake. His nerves going haywire stopped him from thinking properly. Never try to tell Sum that nothing was going on. If anything got her suspicious, that would be that. Kiba panicked when he saw Sum had walked out of the door. Naruto, having Sum's warning still fresh in mind, wasn't doing much better, although he wasn't as ghostly pale as Kiba was. Mostly it was due to the fact that he had no idea of how Inuzuka Sum could react when something went wrong with her clan's ninkin. It was probably even worse than that time Naruto had put a pile of porn magazines next to a chair in which a Hyuga elder was sleeping. In spite of his suspicions against the man, Naruto had never found solid evidence. Though, slandering the man in that way Hyuga strongly disliked perverts was a good alternative for hurting his reputation. Both boys gulped when the annoyed Sum stepped forward. And the plan worked perfectly, Suzume, she reported in her usual chipper voice. The alpha woman two-leg was scolding them both, at least until Kuromaru four-leg showed up. He was even more drunk than the other ninkin. Good. Tayuya smiled wickedly. Serves that bastard right for spoiling us. And here is the cake you asked for. Karen stepped into the room, instantly overwhelmed by the gluttonous Sakana. Not that Shiro and Tora were far behind, but the chubby Sakana could move with surprising speeds when food was involved. Calm down, Karen laughed. There's a fish cake for each of you. How did you get so many? I ran into Hitomi-sama when I was going to buy one, Karen chuckled, looking at her sister. A pie filled with fish isn't exactly a regular thing to look for, so when I explained what we were planning. No way, Tayuya frowned. That pompous blue hair actually has a sense of humor. Well, she did say she did not mind getting back at Nissan. She was also reading that book, you know. Chapter 67. The Royal Conspiracy. Zenchi-kun, what just happened? Eiko demanded with a shrill voice. Those pests. Those plebeian pests. I was a fool to think that I could trust in their greed, Zenchi snarled. They're merely lunatics, driven wild by the taste of blood. If Rado-san hadn't warned us. Akatsuki is an organization filled with S-ranked criminals. The worst and most dangerous shinobi in the world, Rado droned emotionlessly. While I do not know how they managed to bypass the barriers, they seem to be aiming for your life. Yes, they must have been. Zenchi grimaced, neglecting to say that he had ordered his men to show the duo one of the scrolls. Through his orders, Rado's original loyalty towards Naruto had been changed to a loyalty towards Zenchi, and the governor would have enjoyed it if the two S-ranked shinobi had joined him in that. After all, While the Tokubetsu Jonin seemed to be resisting the illusion at times, he had not been able to break it. Eiko had more reservations regarding Rado than Zenshi had, even if Rado was the sole reason for their survival. In either case, Zenshi had decided not to inform Rado of the deal that was struck with the mercenaries. Lift your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. What? Eiko screamed when the young blonde Shunin suddenly appeared in the middle of the room. The three samurai that had escaped Kisami's onslaught charged at the boy. The men had been on edge, and when the blonde boy startled them, they acted without thinking. Their blades glowed with the chakra that was channeled through it, and yet the weapons snapped like twigs when they met Naruto's bow. Naruto channeled far more chakra through the metal staff, easily overpowering the samurai, who had too little training in chakra control to stand a chance against Naruto. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu, Naruto growled, blasting the men aside with a fairly weak fireball. These men were only following the orders of their superior. Killing them felt like how he had murdered multiple Hyuga of the branch family, once he realized they had only acted due to the commands given to them. Uzumaki-san, what do you think you are doing? Zenshi barked. Rado-san, bring the girl. Only now Naruto noticed her. Cuffed and bruised, Fuka stood in the corner of the room. It was little more than a storage room, used mostly by the servants, but Zenshi and his wife had found it the perfect place to escape from Kisami's wrath. The samurai who had caught the fleeing girl had had the exact same idea. He had hidden behind her after seeing what Naruto did to his two comrades. Why haven't you fled like I told you? But, Zenshi-sama, I had to, the young woman whimpered. I'm so sorry, Naruto-sama. Silence, Zenshi growled at the girl. Now that we know who holds which cards, we can discuss your audacity. He gestured at one of his samurai, who intended to move his blade towards Fuka's neck. Tried and failed. Naruto threw his kunai hard enough to bury it hilt and all in the man's skull. He had expected more resistance from the helmet, but felt little remorse for the brutal action. Killing the man was the best option that remained. You insolent, the daimyo won't like it that a shinobi from Konoha would act against. Zenshi-kun. Eiko frowned when her husband suddenly paused. You, how dare you, the daimyo, he gurgled. Who do you think sanctioned my mission? Who do you think requested our Hokage to send a team here? Did you honestly believe we would risk sending Naruto for such a menial task as fixing a few barrier markers? Rado whispered in the ear of the Chiji of the northern region. No, we were here to assess and, if we deemed it necessary, dispose of the threat which you formed against the daimyo and his office. I am impossible. My father would never. Your plan was unknown, but your intentions didn't go unnoticed, Rado grumbled. If not for that genjutsu, I would have done this yesterday, after I uncovered your plans. Ah well, this way I can blame Hoshigaki Kisame for murdering you. No one would doubt that, considering what he did to Mizu's previous daimyo. What about the witnesses? Naruto frowned, now that he had gotten past the surprising turn of events. His wife is accessory to treason against the nation. Rado's voice was void of any emotion. With these scrolls, they planned to overthrow the daimyo himself, usurping his position. At the same time, the daimyo cannot afford to have an embarrassment like this to go public. Our primary concern is ensuring the peace and stability in Hi no Kuni. We do not know how many supporters he has in the capital, so it has to be done. Rado pulled his black sword from Zenshi's body. The poison from the blade had already spread, putting the man in a coma. A sleep followed by his eternal sleep. And no, stay away from me, you filthy commoner. Eiko tried to run, but Naruto was in her way. His bow blocked her escape route, knocked her back, and Rado struck without holding any hesitation. The blade pierced her heart, killing her instantly. What about the samurai? Naruto looked, but Rado grimaced. Damn, this mission makes me feel dirty. It is what being a shinobi entails, unfortunately. Thinking about Itachi, Naruto nodded. I feel sorry for these men. But you are right, if word would spread before the influence of the scrolls can be undone, we still could have a chaotic situation that would potentially cause a lot of death. This is the path with the least amount of casualties. Terasu has been working for at least a few months, so who knows how many scrolls have been spread. Futon. Rinkuden. He shot 2 bullets of wind chakra at the already downed men, killing them instantly. No, Naruto grunted, when Rado turned towards Fuka. Not her. She knows too much. Rado frowned. But she is not loyal to Zenshi. If not for her, I would not have found out the truth. Because of her, I managed to free Terasu and his family, ending this madness. Zenshi held Terasu's wife and son hostage, forcing the man to create those annoying genjutsu scrolls. Without Fuka, I would have probably been captured as well. How can you be sure she is free? I freed you, didn't I? Naruto deadpanned. Lift your skinny fists like antennas to heaven. That was the failsafe Terasu built into the seals, the phrase which breaks the genjutsu. She heard it when I freed you, so she isn't a threat. If you say so. Rado remained a bit skeptical. Fuka-chan, do you want to come with us to Konoha? Naruto asked the terrified young woman. While he knew she was free now, he'd rather keep her close to determine whether the genjutsu was truly broken or not. She felt odd to his senses, her intentions somehow muddled. On the other hand, she was a civilian. In Rado's case it would be more difficult to assess whether he was truly freed or not, considering he was a much better at hiding his emotions. But Fuka had been honest to a fault, verging on outright naivety, so she'd make a much better case. We will probably need to escort Terasu to Konoha anyway, so one civilian more or less doesn't really bother us. As that, can I really? Why yes, Naruto-sama, she stammered, backing away from Rado and getting close the young blonde. Very close. See, can we get out? Naruto blinked. Ah, yes. It isn't a pretty sight, is it? He noticed the greenish look on her face, yet couldn't say that he truly felt fear radiating from her. To Naruto, seeing a corpse had not been too shocking. While he disliked killing helpless opponents, he had spread enough death to not be bothered by the sight of someone whose head was hit by a bullet of wind chakra. The girl, however, should never have seen a corpse of a human being before, in her years at this castle. Yes, something was odd here. No. We are not going to Konoha. Terasu refused Naruto's suggestion. No way in hell. I'm done being a shinobi. I want a peaceful life with my family, away from the chaos which the hidden villages create. I'm through with it. Not to mention that if I go to Konoha, I'm bound to be noticed by spies from Iowa. I must still have family back in Iowa, and while I was never particularly close to them, I don't want them to get in danger because of my selfishness. But I'm not negotiating, Terasu huffed. He held his eldest son close, as Isuzu and he had blindfolded the boys. They didn't want to traumatize the poor children with the sight of Kisami's handiwork. While I agree that we can't stay here, as this mess will draw far too much attention, my family cannot move to Konoha. We'll have to find another place to live. Our mission was to locate you, Kurenai stated. If you are moving after this, we would fail our mission. We can't just leave them either, can we? Karen muttered. That would feel wrong. So we are escorting them. Kiba deduced. Please tell me I don't have to walk that entire shitty distance at a civilian's pace. I can't stand that. I can nick Zenshi's Norimono, litter, Naruto smirked. His carriage, he explained, seeing their looks. The guy was a noble, so he is bound to have one of those stuck-up Norimono things somewhere, right? Carrying them in that thing would be a lot easier. The Norimono is kept in the building next to the stables, behind the first wall, Fuka supplied. With a few clones, that thing should speed up our travels, Naruto nodded. If it is big enough for all 6 of you, that is. 6. Terasu frowned. Aren't those things meant for 1 or 2 people only? Fuka is coming too, Naruto replied offhandedly. So yes, 6 people. The Norimono which Zeki-sama always used, as big enough for Isuzu and the children. Fuka hesitated, seemingly grossed out by the sight when the passed yet another torn to shreds samurai. There is a second Norimono which is a bit smaller, but still good for 2 people. Eiko-sama used it when Zenshi-sama was away. Tisk. They could have just used a normal carriage, there are plenty of horses, Kiba scoffed. I bet that wasn't comfortable enough for their noble asses. Kiba. Behave, Kurenai sighed. But if they died, how did you survive, Rado? The report will state that Zenshi and his wife were slain by Uchiha Itachi and Hoshigaki Kisame, Rado stated, not showing more emotion than he had to. Zenshi appeared to have had a deal with them, which backfired. Although I might add to the report that it is possible that someone hired those two to dispose of Zenshi. Might be useful for the daimyo and Hokage-sama if they need to remove any possible accomplices of the bastard. Kurenai couldn't exactly disagree with that decision. These matters remained politically sensitive, and considering how this mission had become a mess, Kurenai knew all too well that Rato's report had to be worded very carefully. Zenshi hired them to capture us, she stated. Whatever he was planning, he saw us as a threat. I don't know what he thought he could achieve by the scrolls he forced me to create, Terasu grunted. He would have put them under a genjutsu, just like he would do with you lot, and he would have had a host of extremely capable minions. True. But the question that remains is where to take you guys. He turned to Terasu and Isuzu. I take it you don't want anywhere near Iwa. Sunagakure doesn't really have a nice climate either, especially not for the little tyke in your arms. I guess somewhere south would be better. How about Nami no Kuni? Nami. That's some poor backwater nation, run by a shipping magnate, isn't it? It's been through some rough times, yes, Naruto admitted. But it has been liberated from the piece of filth who tried to take it over. Me and my old team made sure of that. So, I do have some acquaintances in Nami, he added, thinking about Tazuna and his family. And with the recent chaos over there, no one will really notice it if a family returned to their homes after having fled from Gato's cruelty. Is it safe? Isuzu asks. For the boys, I don't want something like this to happen again. I know the guy who has built a bridge from the mainland to the island of Nami no Kuni, and he can vouch for you, Naruto mused. He was a pretty important figure in their community, so I bet he should be able to help out. And I leave it to you to decide under which names you want to be known. At least, I doubt you used the name Terasu while you were fighting for Iwa. Indeed. You were smarter than I assumed, brat. No wonder you said you knew your way around Fuinjutsu too. Fuinjutsu users are just awesome that way, Naruto grinned. Let's hit the road. I'll create clones for the carriages. I'm not planning to wait around. And don't worry about Arrow Cage, Rato. I'll send him a toad while we're on the road. Kosuke can take the reports from you and Kurenai-sensei with him as well. A toad on the road. Nice rhyming. Kurenai shook her head, as amused by his antics, even though she was confused by the lighthearted way he dismissed facing two infamous shinobi. Something happened between him and Itachi, and she knew she'd have to get to the bottom of that before they returned to Konoha. Karen, Hiba, Hinata, you three will check for ambushes. Kisame is known to be unpredictable, and I am not willing to risk walking into a trap. Can you use your Kage Bunshin to scout the area ahead, Naruto? I'm going to be so damn happy when I can do that jutsu, Hiba said enviously. No more boring chores for me and Akamaru. You'll remember everything your clone has done, so technically you're still the one who has done those chores, Naruto chuckled when he saw Kiba sigh in defeat. Besides, I bet your mom would just double the workload once she realizes you can do the Kage Bunshin no jutsu. Especially after that incident with the sake. She still doesn't believe that we're innocent, Kiba whined. Women are cruel. Hey. Thank you Kosuke. Jiraiya took the scroll from the red toad with its blue marking around the head. Iruka was confused when the toad, who wore a pair of goggles, suddenly jumped at his desk, demanding entrance into the office of the Hokage. I take it Naruto and Rato were fine. Naruto looked a bit tired, but I didn't see injuries, Kosuke croaked cheerfully. What about payment? Rummaging through his drawer, Jiraiya grumbled something about greedy little toads which had dangerous obsessions with gold, but he did pay the creature before it poofed away in a cloud of smoke. Naruto. Iruka frowned. Can I ax? Rato's mission is classified, Iruka. S ranked. Jiraiya mumbled absent-mindedly while quickly reading through the message. And it seems like Naruto got involved as well. Both missions succeeded. And apparently Kurenai's mission as well. And, damn. Hokage-sama. Iruka saw the toad sage pale. Are they all right? They are but, damn. Somehow Hoshigaki Kisame and Uchiha Itachi ended up being involved with the Chiji of the northern region. Ah well, that makes it all the more convenient. Kisame. The monster of Kurigakure. And Itachi. Calm down. Jiraiya secured the room. Zenshi, the Chiji, one of the lesser sons of the daimyo, has died. The official reports will state that it has been at their hands. But the real, the S-ranked mission, Iruka paled. So the correspondence between you and the daimyo was. Yep. A dirty and dark S-ranked secret, just the kind which politicians love the most, Jiraiya chuckled grimly. Nobility rarely allows their dirty laundry to be seen publicly, so they find other ways to dispose of it. This is why hidden villages usually have plenty of leverage over the nobles, as they are the ones who deal with their secrets. Then Naruto's mission was merely a cover for Rato. Not exactly. The death of the Chiji could throw the region in a tantrum, so his successor would need to have a strong and secure stronghold from which he or she could operate from, so buffing up the castle's defenses could never hurt, Jiraiya smiled. Besides, Rato could use Naruto's ability to sense negative emotions quite well to assess the threat which Zenshi posed. While the original orders were to dispose of the man and make it look like an accident, the involvement of those two Akatsuki mercenaries provides a good enough explanation as well. Zenshi's plans are more troublesome, though. This is going to be a long day. In the silence that followed, Iruka struggled to process what he had just heard. Iruka, those kids are no longer your students. Jiraiya knew why the man had issues. They are shinobi of Konohagakure now. Naruto is a chunin, or more like a small army of chunin, so his missions will often include danger. While I like it no more than you do to hear that the brat had to face Itachi, we can't keep him away from danger either. I thought I could send him on a relatively controlled mission, but, well, things change, he shrugged. Naruto already faces danger every day, Hokage-sama. The Kyuubi. Yes, but at least the old man's sacrifice gave Naruto some time. You did notice his changed behavior, didn't you? Akko doesn't allow me not to notice it, Iruka smiled a bit sheepishly. She is relieved to see that he isn't as troubled as he had been for a long time. Me too. You know, I hated it as first, to know that the boy who held the creature that murdered my parents would be my student. But I soon realized that Naruto suffered far more from his burden than anyone else. He's a good kid, despite the hardships he had to face. Although, it would have been a bit easier for him if he hadn't been so distant to everyone. He has learned the value of comrades, Jiraiya smiled. He had to thank Kurenai, Hiruzen, and Hyuga Haruki for that, as well as those of his own generation, Hinata especially. Tsunade had told him quite a bit of how the girl hadn't been willing to move from Naruto's side, while he was in the hospital. She's still a hopeless romantic. And yet she never sees me, but who can I blame? Dan was the love of her life. And after Nawaki, her heart has become cold. But perhaps, she seems to be changing slowly, so perhaps. No, Jiraiya of the Sannin would never give up on her. He knew it was foolish, selfish even, but he couldn't refute his own emotions. In spite her years of marriage to one, Isuzu had stated that it had been a joke that no one, not even a shinobi, could cross a nation in the span of 3 or 4 days while transporting 6 civilians. Well, she hadn't been completely wrong. Motion sickness struck her, and the youngest child wasn't feeling too well either, crying constantly whenever they went too fast. The carriage was shaking too much, dazing and confusing the poor souls who were not accustomed to those movements, so they had been forced to slow down. But on the 6th day, they did indeed reach their destination. Although, it wasn't like Naruto was expecting it, not at all. The Great Naruto Bridge. What the hell? He just stood there, dumbly staring at the kanji on the signs. Kai. It is not an illusion. Kiba-kun, Karen giggled. Akamaru whined, confused why Kiba was acting like this. Kai. Naruto joined in. Are you really sure about that? He wondered. I mean, last time I was here, I massacred a bunch of mercenaries. I thought the village was rather disgusted by what I did. Perhaps they came to realize that you were the one who rescued them all. Hinata smiled, in no small degree due to feeling proud that he had achieved something so tangible, to be honored in such a grand way. You were their hero, Naruto-kun. But, they feared me. Was it fear you saw in their eyes, Kurenai smiled, or was it reverence? Civilians often have trouble comprehending the prowess of a shinobi. Even when seen as a hero, a shinobi might still be treated with caution. If they saw you take down so many, Rato agreed, having talked with Kakashi about that mission. They must have realized how easy it would have been for you to take them down too. Yes, I've seen it happen many times now. I mean, fists, kunai, are flashy jutsu or things civilians understand, but genjutsu, Kurenai sulked a little. Her specialization was always frowned upon, seen as cowardly tricks. She hated that, because genjutsu could be so much more. Anyone who has ever seen Gai Sensei and Lee perform their sunset scenery knows how devastating an illusion can be, Naruto groaned. Reluctantly, Kurenai had to concede on that point. But to see my name on a bridge is rather unexpected. Isn't this good? Terasu mingled in. He was glad to get out of the carriage for a moment, so that he could stretch his legs. Well, his remaining leg and his prosthetic leg. The Norimono offered a comfortable way of transportation, but sitting still for hours was rather annoying. If you're a hero, it would mean people won't mind us either. Although we don't want to draw too much attention. If it is nearby, perhaps my family should continue by foot, escorted by Kurenai-san and her team, while you and Rado-san move ahead. So that all the attention is drawn to Naruto and you can walk into the village in anonymity. Rado frowned. Not a bad idea. I'm a certified genius, kiddo, didn't the brat say that we Fuinjutsu users are just awesome that way? Terasu smirked. Though, life is a lot easier when people aren't aware of that fact. I guess I gotta tone down my boasting now, don't I? As if you could, Isuzu teasingly chastised her husband. We have a plan, so shall we move on? Naruto looked at Rado. We can meet up with the others at Tazuna's place. I'll leave a disguised clone to guide them there. The village had changed quite a bit in the months since Naruto had last seen it. Roofs were repaired, walls no longer had holes through them, and the main street was actually looking proper for a change, as did the people. While Nami no Kuni still did not give off the impression that it was a wealthy nation, at least the people looked well fed now, and the buildings at least looked properly tended. The children on the streets were busy playing games, seemingly having forgotten the hardships of the past. It was quite a lot better than the beggars Naruto had seen last time. The empty defeatist look in the people's eyes had vanished, replaced by a vigorous desire to rebuild all the damage that Gato had inflicted on them. And yet, upon seeing that two shinobi entered the street, many became terrified until one little boy shouted that Naruto had whiskers. A shinobi with whiskers was such an uncommon sight that it could only be one. Before he and Rado fully realized what was going on, a crowd of people had surrounded them. Children were celebrating like it was a national holiday, and their elders were overwhelming Naruto with questions. The liberator had returned, was what they said. The boy who redeemed Nami no Kuni. Or, the boy who has eradicated the foul mercenaries from our island. Some women even tried to get close, too close for Naruto's comfort. I just did what you hired me for, he muttered, abashed. I was part of a team that aided you all. But they didn't listen. Too many had seen how he created an army of clones. The invading mercenaries, who would have raped and pillaged the inhabitants, had been stopped by a single boy. The same boy who freed their abducted daughters, at least those who survived the horrible ordeal which they had gone through, serving Gato and his men. To these people, who had not seen the vicious battle against Zabuza, Naruto had been their hero. Sure, he had been rather distant and they did admit that he had scared them at first, but even when he didn't have to do it, Naruto had rescued them. Tazuna's story had obviously spread, of how they had been ambushed and how Kakashi should have abandoned him, had the Jonin followed the rules that had been dictated by Konoha. We were a lost people, shattered and broken, one man entreated Rado. And then that boy and his team came. 4 people. That one young boy possesses a power great as an army. Even while I was there that day, I still have trouble believing what I saw. The cluster of people also drew the attention of one woman who was shopping for groceries together with her son. Tsunami-san. Naruto laughed a bit sheepishly, feeling very awkward now that he was the center of so much attention. Naruto-san. Tsunami gasped when she recognized him. He had switched his clothes to a dark green, and now wore a flak jacket that signified his increase in rank. But that wasn't it. When she last saw him, he seemed burdened, as if the weight of the world rested on his young shoulders. This time, he seemed far more relaxed, cheerful, in spite of his visible awkwardness caused by all the praise. What brings you to our village? I was just passing by after our mission was completed, Naruto gestured at Rado. And then we saw the bridge. I mean, it's not every day you see your name on a bridge, you know. I guess we should have asked you first, She laughed gently. But we were too busy celebrating the freedom which Kakashi-san and your team had given us. Naming the bridge that would end the poverty of our nation was not a matter which occupied us at the time. But how could we not name our village after the hero who saved us? One voice came from the crowd, quickly joined by many more. Can we meet your dad? Naruto had to shout to make himself audible to Tsunami. Inari still looked curiously at the blonde. And that pretty much sums up their situation, Naruto finished, gesturing at Terasu, Isuzu, and their 3 boys. Your friends are our friends, Tazuna stated jovially. Though you left me curious, why did you all have to abandon your home? During our mission, one of our opponents might have escaped, Naruto lied through his teeth. Since we couldn't be completely certain, Rado and I decided to erase all traces of the family and to evacuate them to a faraway place. That's where you guys came to mind. I figured new inhabitants wouldn't really draw that much attention in this village, considering what you've recently been through. That's why you went ahead of them. Tsunami realized. You saw the bridge and knew you would draw a lot of attention. Yup. But do you guys have a place for the family? We can earn our weight, Terasu grumbled. I didn't just leave home without a Ryo in my pockets. Technically, it was within a seal engraved within his fake leg, rather than his pockets, but that was beside the point. Don't worry, we owe that boy and his team more than we could ever repay, Tazuna laughed. There's a place free. The previous owners died during Gato's reign. But I'm afraid the place is rather run down, so it will take a bit of time until we fix it. We have 2 spare rooms, Tsunami chimed in. Isuzu-san, shall we take the boys upstairs? I'm sure they must be tired from the journey. Not just them, Isuzu smiled. Boys, follow Ka-chan. Fuka-san, would you care to help me? Getting some shut-eye wouldn't hurt, Terasu chuckled. Even when we didn't even have to walk, that carriage thing was freaking tiring. Kurenai-sensei. Rado, what are we going to do? Naruto wondered. It's getting late, and we've covered enough ground for the day, Kurenai looked at her genin. After they had all recovered from the skirmish with Itachi and Kisame, she had made them run with full packing again, in order for them to improve their stamina. Needless to say, none of the 3 were eager to set off for Konoha right away. We'll put up some tents, so don't worry about us, Tazuna-san. Oh, great, I was worrying about that, the man admitted with a sheepish grin. And I wonder, what happened to your old team, kiddo? The scarecrow Kakashi, that pink-haired girl, and that other boy, Uchiha Sasuke, why aren't they here? No offense to you and your team, Kurenai-san. Let's say that Sasuke and I had a fight, Naruto remained cautious. The defection of the last Uchiha was a sensitive topic to Konoha. So, I got assigned to Kurenai-sensei. Thanks to her, I got promoted, and Karen Nichan took my spot in Team 8. So you're really a Chunin now. Tazuna blinked. That's pretty impressive for a kid your age. Not that I had expected anything different, considering what you did for us. It was your first mission outside Konoha, wasn't it? Technically, yes. It wasn't my first time killing people, though. The ease with which Naruto made that statement disturbed Tazuna, and Terasu frowned as well. But, neither could really say anything about it. The life of a shinobi wasn't easy, after all. Tazuna might be a civilian, but he had seen enough of the world to know that shinobi were trained from a very young age to excel in the art of murder. Smooth, Ni-san, very smooth, Karen muttered as the group went outside to prepare for the night. You might want to improve your skills at subtlety if you want to become the next Hokage. Scaring a civilian with talk about murder isn't really nice, Hinata agreed carefully. I caused a bloodbath here, Naruto shrugged. That guy knows perfectly well who and what we are. Kill 1 man, and you are a murderer. Kill 100 men, and you are a hero, Kiba said sagely. Although, his intention of appearing smart was ruined when Akamaru bit him in the nose. The pup didn't like it when his partner acted like a fool, at least, like a different type of fool than usual. Murder remains murder. Naruto had created a few clones to set up his tent while they were talking. He'd gone through this routine so often that it barely took 2 minutes. Such were the wonders of teamwork if the entire team consisted of you. But if I have to get blood on my hands for the sake of rescuing all these people, so be it. Isn't that what our jobs entail? Calculations. Pretty much. Rado nodded. Not at all. Kurenai protested. Rado, how can you say such a cold-hearted thing? Because what Naruto said is true. It isn't just cold calculation. Sure, sometimes you are forced to do things you'd rather not do, for the sake of the greater good, but it isn't a decision you make cold and emotionlessly, is it? She seemed unusually agitated. Naruto, why did you massacre those mercenaries? Because they would have raped and murdered this entire village if I hadn't stopped them. Did you act from emotion, or cold logic? I was furious when I saw what they were about to do, Naruto admitted. Probably because of that darn fox, infecting me with his rage. I think it is safer for me to trust logic. Less risk of me going wacky, if I don't listen to my anger. With that, he jumped off towards the village, leaving teammate and the two Jonin behind. Give him some time, Rado sighed. He did some things here that he isn't proud of. And from what he told me earlier, he thought that the people of this village were terrified of him. Instead he finds this, a bridge named in his honor, villagers flocking to him, calling him a hero. I think it confuses him. Naruto-kun deserves to be called a hero. Hinata couldn't really hide her pride, even though she sounded concerned. Kurenai couldn't blame the girl. She too had held her worries about the boy. Freed from the malice of the Kyuubi, Naruto had changed his life for the better. But on certain points he was still searching for answers. The people of Konoha should do the same, Hinata huffed, making her sensei smile. He keeps the Kyuubi imprisoned, he protects everyone from it, and all he gets in return is hatred. Yeah, Kiba sighed. After he failed to bring Sasuke back, I used Henge no Jutsu, he admitted. I wanted to know what it is like, the way people look at you, the way they talk about you, even when you're still within hearing range. Do you know that some even tried to pin the deaths of Shino and Choji on him? It is disgusting. I agree with Hinata. The way this village treats him is a lot better. I think the sentiment is already changing, even if it is a slow change. Kurenai gestured to Kiba to remain calm. Some people realize the role Naruto had in thwarting the invasion. The way he stopped Gaara from unleashing the Ikibi in the center of the village, for instance, is something that swayed the opinion of many of the people who were fairly neutral regarding him. Although, some people will not change their minds so easily. Is it safe to let Naruto-kun wander around? Regarding how his life in Konoha was, he cared fairly little about it now that he had his own place to live, with a family to boot. It didn't stop him from enjoying a stroll through this little village in Nami no Kuni. I never even asked what this village is called. Although, considering the dump it originally was, I wouldn't be too surprised if it wasn't even named. Unlike Konoha, everyone here was friendly to him. Everyone smiled, wanted to talk to him, as if he was normal. At least, he was as normal as a shinobi could be to a civilian. Sure, he did sense plenty of fear in them, but after what Rado and Kurenai had said he knew it was a normal response civilians had to shinobi. Fortunately it didn't cloud their judgment, considering how they still acted this friendly. Some told him stories of how Naruto stopped a bandit from killing him, others of how he had rescued a son or daughter or brother or sister or, he quickly lost track. There was one person, however, who he did remember whom he probably would never forget. He had liberated her from Gato's mansion, where the abducted women were taken and forced to act as entertainment for Gato and his men. She and her fellow victims had spent a horrible time there, and many girls and women who had survived the ordeal had been forever damaged, their minds unable to cope with the abuse. Some had even committed suicide, especially those like her. Some had gotten pregnant from the men who had raped them, just like her. Ko was her name, a girl who'd turn 18 next month. She'd only spent 2 weeks in that hellhole, and it had left her with a child. And in spite of it all, she told Naruto that this child was innocent. She couldn't get rid of it, as some urged, such as her parents, who had cast her out when she refused to do it. However, she believed that the baby didn't have anything to do with the humiliations and horrors inflicted on her. She even asked him if she could name her child after him. She seemed oddly calm, yet had a glint in her eyes which made Naruto shudder. The baby was what held her strong, what kept her going, but this girl still had to deal with a lot of traumatic experiences. He wondered if the scars on her soul would ever heal. But if her baby could aid in her recovery, in spite of how it was conceived, then who was he to deny her request? This was her decision to make, not his. Not even her parents could decide that for Ko. Ko lived together with a few other women who had shared her horrible fate. There were those who had no home to return to, as their families were murdered when objecting to the abductions, and others who were cast out by their families like Ko. They were victims, and yet some blamed them for what happened to them. One man had not been willing to take his wife back after she had gotten pregnant from someone else. It disgusted Naruto that people could actually be this cruel to these already suffering women, treating them as if they had asked for this. After his meeting with Ko, his mood had sobered considerably. He planned to thank Tsunami for the role she had played in getting Ko and her sisters a roof to sleep under, as well as for the way she quietly supported them in other ways. Tsunami and many other women knew that they too could have eventually suffered that fate, had the Konoha team hadn't shown up like they did. Lost in thought, Naruto at first hadn't even noticed that someone was following him. At least, he couldn't recall when she started doing so. She had long, flowing, maroon-colored hair, and her wardrobe was rather, well, the few times Naruto spotted her left him blushing slightly. She was rather scantily clad, her clothes fitting tightly on her tall and slender form. The dark pink GI and her light purple spandex shorts left little to imagination. Still, it wasn't her beauty that made Naruto notice her. It was the malice she radiated. Apparently she had decided to drop her act. Once he noticed her, he also figured out that she had been hiding her chakra all this time, which was incredibly impressive considering the sensory abilities of his team. Great. So she's a kunoichi, and a good one at that. From what village? I suppose I should split off a disguised clone that can warn Rado and Kurenai-sensei. Should I lead her to Terasu? Meh. No time. Looks like I have no choice but to face her. In the time that Naruto had spent within the village, the sun had already gone down, the moon now illuminated his path. He leapt through the night, and felt that her malicious aura quickly gave chase. He created a distance, and she seemed rather cautious. Just outside the village, Naruto found a plateau devoid of trees. Good. I have the high ground, and with her keeping her distance like this, I have got some time to prepare myself as well. No need to make the same mistake as I did against Sasuke, he mused. Yes, those who wished to use Fuinjutsu in combat needed some time to prepare their jutsu. While Sasuke was an exceptionally difficult opponent, being able to see chakra with his Sharingan, Naruto also knew that he had lacked proper preparations in that battle. He had foolishly rushed in, unlike how he had been prepared before facing Gaara during the exams. Kage Bushin could be a useful way to get around the weaknesses which Fuinjutsu imposed, but still, clones had their limitations. Perhaps he needed to resort to the toads to protect him during a battle, or a close combat specialist capable of holding off opponents until Naruto had his seals ready. I suppose that is why Hokage sent Rado along. His skill at Kenjutsu is ideal in my case. On top of the plateau was something strange, a torii. The wooden posts still carried their original red color, even though the ivy was slowly overgrowing it. It had an odd resemblance to the torii which marked the entrance of the Uzumaki compound, making Naruto wonder if this old thing was somehow related to his clan. Sadly, he didn't get the time to inspect the ceremonial gate further, as his pursuer had chosen to reveal herself. Magnificent, isn't it? She smiled innocently. I figured she had to be one hell of an actress. Seductress, by the looks of it. Naruto couldn't deny she'd be effective at seducing men. She was truly beautiful. The only imperfection that he could notice was the beauty mark under the left side of her lip. She had definitely filled up nicely, somehow having changed her body in this curved weapon of seduction he now saw. But appearances meant little to Naruto, who sensed her vile personality. But he figured he might as well play along, for the time being. It is a bit saddening to find something like this in such a state. All things wither and die as time passes by, she said while smiling at Naruto in a way that freaked him out a little. Wasn't he a little young to be targeted that way? I wonder who built it, though. Who knows? She shrugged slightly. There are many relics of the time before the 5 great villages were founded, fortresses abandoned or destroyed, left behind by the clans of that time, she said, almost as if reminiscing about the past. The symbol on top seems to point out that it belongs to the Uzumaki clan, or so they say. But you know that already. Don't you, Naruto-sama? Why don't we drop this charade, Fuka? Thank you for freeing me, Naruto-sama. She ignored his request. Is there any way I might be able to repay you for your kindness? The sultry voice still held an undercurrent of venom. It kind of freaks me out that a grown woman tried to seduce me. Not that you aren't pretty, on the contrary, but, ah well, you hide well enough for a regular person, but in front of me it matters little. What is that supposed to mean? Gone were her sultry smile and friendly voice. My technique is flawless. You're vile, Fuka. It is somehow muddled, hard to sense in you, but I still noticed it. But considering how you didn't act, I decided to keep my mouth shut. You weren't aiming against me or my friends up. Till now, so, Naruto smiled kindly, although his cold blue eyes told a wholly different story. Why did you stay with us, Fuka? The chaos you caused drew my interest. But what kept me from slaughtering you all in your sleep was your chakra. She smirked arrogantly at the young blonde in front of her. A true feast. And most likely a good bounty too. And I needed time to refill my chakra reserves, considering that I couldn't do such without losing sight of you. It is weird how her malice mostly radiates from her hair, rather than her body. Is it some sort of puppet jutsu? It would explain why she's able to change like this. It isn't a henge or any other genjutsu, yet she clearly changed her body. Naruto frowned, taking a closer look at his opponent. So you're here for my chakra. How dull, but it is comforting to know that I am your target. Zealously, she spat out a flood of water, after which she immediately rushed through several hand seal. Boar, ram, snake, horse, dragon, Naruto could see them all. Raiden. Jaibashi lightning release. Electromagnetic murder, she growled, before a wave of electricity jolted through the soaked ground. The mud on which Naruto stood acted as a conductor, and a powerful stream of lightning brought him to his knees. But that didn't stop her. Doden. Ganchuso earth release. Rock pillar spears, she immediately launched a third consecutive jutsu at Naruto, this one creating piercing rock pillars around him, sharp enough to skewer a wild boar, rendering him unable to move an inch. Suiden, Raiden, and Doden. Naruto panted. Seems I was right to take precautions. Hey, what can you do now that you? Her boasting was cut off the moment he vanished in a puff of smoke. Kage Bunshin. Omori no Fuen. Wait seal. Suddenly she felt as if she was dragged to the ground. Whether gravitation suddenly increased to unbearable levels, or if he body simply couldn't sustain her weight, she never knew. What she did know was that the real Naruto now revealed himself. Naruto silently thanked Anko once again for her poisons, as he hit his opponent with a couple of senbon that would leave her immobilized for some time. One of the senbon cut off a few strands of her hair. This victory had been easier than anticipated. Letting down his guard was a grave miscalculation. Her long hair extended itself, wrapping itself around him, truly imprisoning him this time. Squeezing and strangling, it didn't take long before his concentration was broken, and the weight of the seal was lifted from her. Fuka rose up, angered by the trick he had pulled on her. I'll suck you dry, Naruto-sama, she hissed, her face getting close to his. Even if he had treated that poor pregnant woman well, what he had done now was unforgivable to Fuka. No one damaged her hair. Shikei Seppen. Execution by Kiss. Bonus. Bojutsu Training Deluxe. In the Uzumaki compound, the grounds on top of the mountain offered the perfect place for training. As such, Team 8 usually used the place for their daily dose of training. After all, Naruto had given all of them clearance to pass the barrier that surrounded the compound. Entering their names, along with a bit of their chakra, into the scroll which was somehow, even Naruto and Jiraiya hadn't figured out how, connected to the barrier, Naruto had granted them free access. However, Karen could pass the barrier anyway, being Uzumaki by default. There weren't that many people who could enter, though. Apart from Kurenai and Team 8, Naruto had only included the names of Shikamaru, Ino, Tenten, Lee, Neji, Iruka, Akko, Rado and Anko in the scroll. Jiraiya, being the Hokage, had access to, and Tsunade was part Uzumaki. Now that he thought about it, Naruto wondered whether he should give Shizune and Taunton access too. Ah well, that could be arranged in due time. Today was training day. The first hours had been filled with Naruto and Kiba duking it out in taijutsu, while Kurenai kept improving their stances. At the same time, Naruto had issued a trio of clones who were teaching Fuinjutsu to Tenten, Hinata, and Karen. Hyuga had refused to join, stating she'd rather train with Anko. The two had similar tempers, and Hyuga, while too stubborn to admit it, wanted to learn how to deal with the burden of the curse seal. After all, Anko had been living with the thing for years. After the exchange of blows, Kiba had switched to practicing his mastery of the earth element. Using a basic form of chakra manipulation, the Inuzuka had weighted his body with solid rock. According to Kurenai, it would provide a good way to train both chakra control and stamina at the same time. The whining Akamaru seemed to think it was torture, though. Karen used the same interval to practice archery. She was still a bit clumsy, but her aim and reach were improving by the day. Once she had a better understanding of Fuinjutsu, she'd be able to combine the two arts with her sensory abilities, which sounded like quite a deadly combination. Of course, Karen had soon gotten frustrated after Kurenai noted that it would take a while before she'd be good enough to use this in the field. Patience runs thin with the Uzumaki, was what Tenten had joked to the blonde proprietor. The two of them had engaged each other with their bow. The staff techniques were one of the core elements of martial training, according to the instruction manuals which Tenten had brought, but both of them knew they had a long way to go before the staff would become an extension of their limbs. Naturally, Tenten was closest to that level. It was almost like she instantly felt a perfect balance within the weapon, making wielding it seem easy as pie. Says who? Naruto smirked. He was bruised all over, but healed much faster than Tenten would. She was obviously the better of the two, but Naruto did manage to occasionally hit her with a slash, swing, or stab from his staff. Me, Tenten shrugged after she popped him on the chin. Don't let your guard down. Damn it, I nearly bit my tongue off. Naruto could taste his own blood. He cautiously put a finger in his mouth, checking if all his teeth and his tongue were still there. I can't wait until when Tsunade-sama's classes start, she smiled wickedly. You're going to be a good guinea pig, and let me heal you after I beat you up, aren't you? You're just looking for an excuse to kick my ass, aren't you? I think you should practice the basic katas more, she suggested with a smile. Your speed is good, and you're definitely stronger, but it is still clumsy. He nodded. I've never really, clumsy. Those were your words, Tenten said a bit defensively, wondering why he suddenly gave her such a wide-eyed look. No, I thought about someone else. Naruto suddenly smacked his own face. Stupid. I should have thought about this earlier. He'd be the perfect sparring partner, and possibly even a good teacher. Kuchio's no jutsu. With a huge cloud of smoke, a giant magenta-colored toad appeared. Yo, Gameiken, sorry to disturb you but, what are you doing? Naruto blinked. Awkwardly, the giant toad tried to hide a paintbrush. Which was near impossible, considering how the brush was roughly the size of tree, a size befitting a 19-meter-tall toad. How clumsy, the toad bellowed after some hesitation. I apologize for appearing unarmed. Hey, so you have a secret hobby of painting. Please don't tell Gamabunta. He'll pester me if he discovered that I passed my time with such unwarrior-like activities. Gameiken scratched his head, clearly embarrassed to be caught at such a moment. Don't worry, I won't tell. But can you help us out for a little while? I'd like to, but I'm afraid that I'm a bit. You're not clumsy. Gameiken, Naruto shook his head. It boggled him why the immense toad was so insecure. You're used to fighting with pole arms, right? Yes. Could you help us out with our Bojutsu spar? Blinking, Gameiken only now realized that there were more people. Why did they have to be so tiny? Gameiken looked down at Naruto and the girl with the two buns on her head, and noticed the staves they held. To him, they were barely larger than a toothpick, but he figured that those tiny humans needed equally tiny weapons. Why am I never summoned during battle? The toad suddenly sulked. You're the only one who is both strong and skilled enough for the task, while gentle enough for me to trust that you're not going to squash us. I mean, if I summoned Bunta, you know how he'd react, Naruto deadpanned. And unlike Hokage, I don't make an hobby out of dodging Bunta's blade. Nor do I want to get Tenten involved with that. He'd end up killing her. Tenten could have sworn that the toad blushed when Naruto complimented him, but with the color of its skin it was hard to say for sure. But at least he did stop sulking. Fine. Gameken suddenly relented. With a poof of smoke the giant brush vanished, replaced by a Susumata unlike any Tenten had ever seen before. The spear fork was easily big enough to swipe an entire building from the village with one swing. Naruto, do you really think this is a good idea? She gulped, looking from her bow to the massive weapon that Gameken wielded. But Naruto only smiled. What could possibly go wrong? Chapter 68. Captivated. Assassination Arc. Captivated. Her sensei had ordered her to rest. Karen was actually already asleep, vaguely mumbling something about fur. But she couldn't get herself to sleep. Periodically she activated her Byakugan, and could see her team. Rado, Akamaru, and Kiba were resting as well, while Kurenai took first watch, waiting for Naruto to return. Giving him some space had been their decision. Hinata couldn't completely disagree, seeing very well how he struggled with his past at times. The malicious influence of the Kyuubi had left deep wounds in him, even if Naruto tried not to show them. Not that he could completely hide his doubts from her eyes. She saw him wander through the village, talking to many civilians, even a pregnant woman for a longer period of time. And then she suddenly saw him rush away. He had left a clone, and she saw someone else quickly following the real Naruto. A woman. Not waking Karen, Hinata slipped out of the tent, quickly dressing herself. Hinata, I'm just taking a walk, sensei. Hinata remained perfectly calm, even if Kurenai gave her a scrutinizing look. I couldn't sleep, Hinata lied without batting an eye. Normally she couldn't do things like this, but if it concerned Naruto. She didn't want anyone to panic. She didn't know the entire situation, but Hinata was certain that if it was something Naruto couldn't handle, he would have come their way rather than rush in the opposite direction. It probably just was some of the local girls, too enthusiastic to see their hero. That was what her womanly intuition told her. It was one of the few things that could irk the usually timid girl. Right now, chakra was crackling from Hinata's fingers. Setting off in a pace as high as her worn-out body could tolerate, Hinata rushed towards the place where Naruto had moved out of her range. Now, the young Hyuga heiress, even if held that position in name alone, was not someone to quickly feel any sort of anger. On the contrary, people within her clan even called her weak for her inability to feel resentment against those who hurt her. Suzaku understood, though. The vermilion bird told her that it was because she could empathize with those who acted against her. Acting on orders, acting out of their own pain, acting out of the pitiful weakness of their hearts, she saw it even if Hinata couldn't say that she ever wished anyone to feel pain. Those who wished others to suffer usually did so because they suffered themselves. That was one of the many lessons which her mother had shared with her. Not that Hinata really needed those words. Only rarely she could get angry, like her little sister could acknowledge. It was only recently that Hinata came to realize that their father failed to understand Hanabi. Her mischievous little sister might act the part of the perfect heiress, prodigy of the Jukan style, but Hanabi repressed her true emotions. Hinata had always known this, and it had been a reason to forgive Hanabi whenever she did something unkind, as the girl was acting out due to her buried emotions. Not that she interacted that much with her little sister, considering how Hanabi followed a separate training regime. Still, Hanabi was one of the few who knew that Hinata could get angry. Hanabi had been 4 years old when she thought it to be funny to throw pebbles at Naruto, knowing that her parents weren't around at the time. The little girl hadn't known what happened to her when her elder sister suddenly started scolding her. Hinata could not forgive those who hurt her friends. And those who acted against Naruto least of all. He was. For a moment she paused, nearly tripping over the roof tile while jumping over the buildings of the village. That possessive little voice in the back of her head startled her. He was hers, no one else's. That was what she had thought. The reflexes took over, honed by the countless hours of training, and she regained her balance, jumping to the next roof in her quest to find Naruto. But her heart was still beating wildly, her face still flushed, red like a tomato. That night they had held hands, watching the commotion that she had caused on New Year's Eve. They hadn't spoken much about that, neither really knowing what to say, both embarrassed, Naruto seemingly confused. She knew what she felt, but, the gratitude she had once felt, when he had saved her life, the admiration that followed, seeing how he endured all the prejudice because he was a Jinchuriki. When had it changed into this emotion that was so infinitely much stronger? Hinata didn't know. She knew she had always turned into a stammering mess whenever she saw him. She'd always end up losing her nerve when his bright blue eyes fell on her. When was it she realized she loved him? A silly childish crush at first, perhaps, but the more she got to know him, though that didn't excuse the existence of that possessive little voice in her head. Hinata still felt ashamed when she thought back at the moment when she had seen Karen embracing Naruto, claiming she was an Uzumaki now. Jealousy was an ugly emotion. It scared her how easily she had gotten angry. While her mother had told her it was normal to feel like that, Hinata was still rather startled by how her feelings for Naruto could turn her world into a chaos. Hitomi was the only one whom Hinata had entrusted her feelings, but only after Hitomi had dragged the words out of her daughter. Hinata had not hidden her affection for Naruto quite as well as she had hoped. Well, that was an understatement if there ever was one, but still. Love isn't logical, Hinata-chan. It can form the root to both our greatest hopes and our deepest fears. It can be as gentle as the songs of the birds during the first days of spring, yet at the same time as strong and violent as the rivers when the snow of winter thaws away. It can start out as something tiny, smaller than the tiniest speck of dust, yet become so enormous that none may ever hope to control it. Do not fear your emotions, my daughter. Embrace them. Cherish them. Suppressing your emotions will only bring unhappiness. If you bottle up your emotions, they will burst out even more violently, making you do or say things you never wanted. Hinata knew her mother's words were meant to ease her confusion. But she had been through the motions already. Hinata knew that her mother had faced a lot of hurdles in her quest to win the heart of the man she had fallen in love with. Not all had approved of her. Not all had deemed her a worthy partner for Hiyashi, the then heir of the clan. Little by little she had managed to increase her prowess, until even Hinata's grandfather, the clan leader, had little choice but to appoint her as the person who'd be responsible for teaching Hiyashi the art of insight. Ever since Suzaku had started teaching her, Hitomi had been unparalleled in the seeing through people's emotions. As tradition demanded the head of the clan to be the strongest of the clan, the elders at the time had been adamant that Hiyashi couldn't let a girl, even if she was from the main family, be better at such a crucial aspect of the Hyuga lore. Defying their orders to teach Hiyashi to the best of her abilities had not been the last time Hitomi had been a thorn in her clan's side. But it had given her the chance to wriggle her way into the heart of the boy she loved. Even though it had taken her quite some time before Hiyashi finally had enough insight to recognize her emotions, as powerful as Hiyashi could be in the art of the Juken, it said little about his talent to see a person's emotions. The clan's current teachings are too rigid. The gentle fist was named gentle for a reason. The Hyuga have bastardized their legacy. This tainted form of taijutsu only holds part of the original prowess, was what Suzaku had told Hinata during one of her lectures. Your elders lost touch with their emotions. This cold rigidity blinds them from the truth, blocks them from reaching the full potential of their eyes. The stronger a person is in the art of the current form of Juken, the greater his blindness. Was love something that could make her blind too? Hinata didn't know, but assumed it did. She knew she still had a long way ahead of her to improve her combat abilities to a level that Suzaku would call acceptable. Hinata was accustomed to be seen as a failure, so being flawed was not something that burdened her as much as a supposed genius like Hanabi or Neji. She was used to having work hard to grow. Striving for perfection was a noble yet unattainable goal, but assuming one was indeed perfect was rather foolish. It was this sort of arrogance which had once blinded Neji, inhibiting his progress. Hinata wondered if it was arrogant and selfish of her to want to claim Naruto all to herself. All she had seen was a woman chasing Naruto, and yet she felt like this. Deeply annoyed. Not because of Naruto. No, but because of that woman. So when Hinata saw that woman attack Naruto, pinning him down with her hair. Yes, her hair. Hinata focused her Byakugan on the woman. She had a great amount of chakra flowing through her hair, and used it to bind Naruto. Her body, on the other hand, seemed a bit awkward. Her tenketsu seemed wrong, somehow, underdeveloped like those of a civilian. Though she obviously was no civilian. Hinata couldn't explain what she saw. Though, she did recognize the woman, in spite of her changed appearance. Not that she was left much room for thought when she saw the woman lean towards Naruto. Shikei Seppan. Execution by kiss. Let go of Naruto-kun. A furious flurry of palm strikes landed on the flabbergasted Fuka. She was forced to let go of her prey, moving her hair out of the way of Hinata's chakra-infused hands. Fuka didn't particularly care as to what happened to her body. Although it did hurt when half of it got destroyed. Nothing that Shiki Tenshin, Reaper Transfer, couldn't mend. The jutsu allowed her to switch her consciousness between the several bodies she has access to. With a quick movement for a green cloth, Fuka tried to conceal that she used a scroll for the switch. Unfortunately, such tricks could not fool Hinata. While the jutsu, to the regular eye, created an illusion of Fuka instantly healing herself, Hinata saw though it all. She saw how Fuka's body crumbled to dust, making place for the new one. Only the hair was excluded from the change, the place where most of the woman's chakra originated from. Not that it changed much for Fuka. Hinata was too furious to doubt herself, to doubt whether or not she could actually execute this jutsu. She just did it. Hake Sanjuni Sho, 8 trigrams 32 palms, she let out a lowly growl at the end of it. First that woman harmed Naruto, and then she tried to steal a kiss from him. Unforgivable. Hinata was too close for Fuka to dodge any of it, and it helped little that she was taken by surprise. 32 strikes systematically shut down her body, destroying the tenketsu of this makeshift body. To make things worse, Hinata had somehow snatched away Fuka's scroll in the process. Changing bodies was out of the question now, the seething Fuka realized. This left the woman with a severely damaged body, attempting to create distance between herself and the Hyuga, desperately dragging herself away. Until something whacked her on her head. Hard. Very hard. Hinata felt a hand grab her by the wrist, dragging her back. Thanks, Hinata-chan, Naruto smiled merrily. She nearly got me there, and then you suddenly whooped her ass. He stood close enough to make her blush, while 3 of his clones surrounded the woman. But. Barrier. Naruto pointed at the trapped Fuka. After she finally decided to reveal herself, I figured that she was strong. I mean, she must have sensed my chakra, yet still went on the offense. It would either mean she is very stupid or very confident in her abilities. Or she thought her seduction techniques would work on me. That would be rather foolish as well. Genjutsu doesn't really do much to me, and those pheromones, well, she's pretty and all, but I'm not that easy. Stupid brat, Fuka growled. Let me out of here. No thanks, you creepy Shotokan. Shut up, Fuka screeched. I'm not a Shotokan. You acted like one. Listen lady, you're sitting right on top a rather big seal of mine. When he pointed it out, Hinata realized that it was true. Naruto's Jigoku no Fuin, infernal seal, was bigger than usual, and with the woman trapped inside the barriers, so you either answer my questions or I blow you to bits. And no, I'm not into older women. You sure? She moved a bit, coincidentally, sitting in such a posture that Naruto had a good view on her cleavage. Do you have any idea how good an experienced woman like me can make you feel? Shut up. Naruto reddened a bit. I'm kinda taken, so stop it. Why were you, Hinata? Hey, Hinata. The mind of the poor Hyuga girl had ceased to function, and it sufficed to say that even Naruto realized that the girl needed some time to recover. I'm kinda taken. He could only blame himself for this. In his embarrassment he had just blurted it out. Fuka had riled him up with those stupid remarks, and he had forgotten, stupid. Stupid, 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 he smacked himself to the head. He created 2 more clones. You make sure Hinata-chan lies down somewhere comfortable, and stop blushing damn it. I am you, boss, the clone protested. How can we not? You know, after you stupidly blurting out that. Shut up and just do what I told you to do, Naruto snapped at him. Clones these days, they became cheekier every time he summoned them. And you, he turned to his other clone self. You make sure Terasu-san gives you one of his genjutsu scrolls, preferably one without a failsafe. If not, I gotta kill her, understand? You sure? Yeah, and, wait, the other clone should have made it back by now. It far easier if I just. Without finishing his sentence, Naruto just swung his bow at the clone's head. That's cruel, boss, the Hinata carrying clone whimpered. You remember his shock. Yeah, then the first clone I made today should remember it too, Naruto smirked. You are really strange, Fuka muttered. Says you. What the hell are you? A living wig. Weird hair with a voice. Quote, comma, quote. You're not going to run for presidency, are you? What? Well, with wigs and all. Ah well, never mind. I'll never be able to logically explain this joke, Naruto mumbled. Why were you after my chakra? People with an affinity for futon jutsu are quite rare. And you have so much chakra that you became quite an attractive prey, Fuka answered honestly, not seeing the point of deception at this point. She had no way out now, and was completely at the boy's mercy. Seduction didn't work, which was quite unusual. On a hormone-driven teenager like him, her body should have had more effect than just plain dismissal. How he acted deviated from the rather low image she had of the male gender. Then again, how he behaved before was unusual as well. Why did you treat that woman like that? What woman? The pregnant one. Ko-san. Naruto frowned. What's wrong with how I treated her? I heard you. She asked if she could name her baby after you. So, she was raped. Children born from rape are trash. What kind of idiot gave you that idea? Naruto's frown deepened. Ko-san is a victim. The only ones who are trash are those mercenaries who raped her. They were trash in the shape of humans, and I don't regret for a moment that I exterminated them. She can't help what happened to her, what they did to her. Naruto grew angry. Nor can that baby. What kind of monster would condemn a child, just because the father was such a filthy beast? Quote, comma, quote. The silence lasted until Naruto made a guess as to why this interested her so much. The root of her hatred. This woman had either fallen victim to the same horrible things that had happened to Ko, or she was someone conceived like Ko's unborn baby, and hated because of it. I see. His felt his anger diminishing. Not that a sad past was any excuse to inflict pain on others, but it did make things slightly more understandable. What do you see? Her arms closed around her chest, pushing her boobs up in another futile attempt to weaken Naruto's resolve. In her view, she was allowed to use every asset she had to survive. As much as she disliked it, getting blown up wasn't exactly an attractive alternative. Stop it, Naruto growled. Damn Shotokan woman. I'm not a Shotokan, she snapped back. I'm 13, in case you didn't notice. Just be glad that I'm not like that pervert of a Hokage of mine, he wanted to add. But instead he just remained silent, rather waiting for Terasu and whoever of his team would join the man, than to continue this discussion. Boobs were dangerous. But it were the various jutsu that this woman performed earlier that interested him. Well, boobs were interesting too, but he could restrain himself. He wasn't like, damn it, and Hokage wants me to become his freaking apprentice. At this rate I'm going to die of nosebleeds before Akatsuki even gets a shot at me. The thing with the hair, he decided to force his mind to concentrate on something else, was also very interesting. Although with how she seemed to be able to swap her body, it looked like kinjutsu. It only solidified his idea that Fuka was too dangerous to be left alone, as she would just target another shinobi for his or her chakra. At the same time, a hidden village was always looking for information on unknown jutsu, making her a potentially valuable source of information. Too valuable to kill, too dangerous to be left unchecked, it made his first plan the best option. If Terasu was willing to cooperate, at least, considering the ethical dilemma which the Genjutsu scrolls posed. Enslaving someone wasn't exactly his style either, but at the same time it did prevent a murder. Perhaps Kurenai-sensei has an alternative. He wondered. Tying her up and dragging her to Konoha wouldn't really be humane either, would it? Besides, if I played my cards right, Fuka could be used to guard Hinata-chan once I'm out of the village. Still, subjugating someone in this way seemed wrong to him, even if it was a means to a justified end. The entire situation only reminded Naruto of the fact that he was never trained to capture and interrogate people. His role up till now had been simple. He was the ninjutsu specialist, spreading havoc on the battlefield while using his excessive chakra reserves, the main advantage of being a Jinchuriki, to the fullest. What was it that Kiba said? Kill one and you're a murderer, kill 100 and you become a hero. Naruto mumbled to himself. Frowning at first, Fuka broke down in laughter. Then I'm the biggest heroine in the world. Shut up. Or you'll join my list, Naruto grumbled. And I don't even have a damn clue how long my list is, though that is to be expected of a Jinchuriki, isn't it? For the first time he saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. How ironic. So even a ruthless murderer like you looks down upon me and my kin. Figures. Silence settled again. She hated him. He despised her. All feelings were out in the open. I'm kinda taken. Or perhaps not all feelings were out in the open. Naruto knew he shouldn't have said that. He didn't have the right to. Well, Naruto knew what he was. Jinchuriki. Sarutobi Hiruzen had given his life to strengthen the seal which held back the full brunt of the Kyuubi's hatred. The unreasonably huge sentient cluster of chakra, a being which was always aiming to overthrow Naruto, to wrench itself free from the seal which the Yondaime Hokage had made, the very seal through which the man had cursed both the Kyuubi and Naruto. How close had he been to corruption? Naruto couldn't say. The madness, the paranoia, the rage, and the all-consuming desire to murder all living beings in front of him, he had been close to losing control, so terribly close. How much time did he have until the seal would once again begin to crumble? How much time had Hiruzen bought? None could say. Jiraiya said that Naruto had to become strong. Strong enough to stop the beast himself. To harness its power, to wield it as his own. If not, he'd become just like Gaara, when he had been on the verge of losing control. When Jiraiya said things like that, Naruto wondered if the old man had any idea of how powerful the Kyuubi actually was. I'm kinda taken. How cruel was it? How could he ever admit how he felt, how he thought he felt? It was something that confused Naruto profoundly. Haruki had lectured him on the matter of love, but Naruto had only listened half-heartedly. Deep in his heart Naruto had always believed that no one would ever come to love him that way. That no one would look at him the way. What the hell am I even doing? If he told Hinata he thought he'd love her, knowing full well that she loved him, what would happen? Where would it end? He wasn't even fully sure about his own feelings. His heart was still in turmoil from everything that had happened recently. The deaths of Haruki and Hiruzen, Choji and Shino, those moments had left deep wounds in his heart. The way how he had nearly lost control, how the seal had nearly been broken, and how he had accepted his own death, planning to take the Kyuubi with him to the grave. If Hiruzen hadn't stopped him, Naruto wouldn't have been here anymore. And the horrible thing was that he had been completely fine with that. The moment Gaara's seal was fixed, Naruto would have burned himself to ashes, ensuring the Kyuubi would perish with him, and be glad that it was finally over. After all that, what kind of idiot would think about love? It was a bittersweet dream, that's for sure, but one that could only end in tears. How many years did he have until the Kyuubi would try to break free again? How long until his beloved would look at his picture, just like Haruki had tended to look at the picture of his fiancée? The pain of loss was a horrible thing, and the deeper one cared for the one who passed away, the deeper the pain would be. How selfish would it be to love someone, knowing that he'd only cause her pain? I'm kinda taken. Was he really taken? They had held each other's hands. His selfish desires had overcome his sense of logic. His heart had been stronger than his doubts. I'm an idiot. I'm not worthy of her. Even if I didn't know that I'd most likely end up dying young, she'd still be too good for me. I made a vow to protect her from anyone that would cause her pain. It would only be fair if I protected her from me too. I have to, or else I would have broken my word. His selfish desire to be close to her paralyzed him. He knew he should distance himself, for her sake, but doing so her happiness was more important to him than his own. It always had been. Without a second thought he had bloodied his hands, for her safety. He had killed, he had used people to find ways to remove the caged bird seal, he had tortured people for information, things he would never have done if not for his desire to protect. He knew that it was wrong, yet could feel no guilt when he thought about how he had removed those who wished harm her. It wasn't to make her see him as a hero, on the contrary, he hadn't even wanted her to find out. But on the other hand, he couldn't lie to her either. He just wanted her to be safe. I'm kinda taken. It tore him apart, made him wish that he had been just a normal person, someone without the burden of a centuries-old demonic fox weighing him down. Without being targeted by people who wanted him for that source of power. People who'd gladly stoop low enough to target anyone close to him. He knew what he had to do, but couldn't. He wanted to hold her hand again. He wanted. The mere thought of a kiss made him blush in shades of which even Hinata herself would be jealous. Me, the demon brat, how insane have I become that I think these thoughts? If only he had been normal. Nothing in his life had weighed him down so much as this. The fact that people hated him for being a Jinchuriki wasn't nice, but it was tolerable as long as it weren't for the occasional bully who thought he was a good punching bag. Growing up without real friends, simply because he had lost his ability to trust anyone, was lonely. But it was a dull ache, not a sharp burning pain like this. Losing people hurt too, yet in a sense it was less confusing, as death was an inevitable part of life. Everyone in their profession knew that. But love posed a question which he could not answer. His mind said one thing, yet his heart stubbornly moved the other direction. I'm kinda taken. Yo, boss, she's waking up. The clone that was in charge of Hinata's safety spoke up, unaware of the turmoil in the original's mind. Good. Naruto looked back at the village. Some lights glowed, but this was not the type of town that had a thriving nightlife. These were hard workers, who used the nights to recover from their long days at work. Fishermen, ferrymen, builders, farmers, and so on, everyone was overburdened with the task to restore their village. Yes, Terasu would fit in perfectly. A few more hands to restore Nami no Kuni. And perhaps he'd be willing to covertly use some fuinjutsu to secure the village as well. Without a hidden village of its own, this tiny country could use that extra defense. He made a mental note of discussing that with the man on a later point in time. Naruto-kun. The moment she looked up, Hinata started to blush heavily. Not that his mind was in a much better state. Although his state of mind was better described by depressed. Then, he said he was kinda taken. He must have been talking about me. Can you check whether Terasu or any of the others are approaching? Naruto asked her calmly, trying his best to ignore her blush, even if he knew darn well why she was blushing. I hope my clone wasn't stupid enough to get something to eat first. Perhaps I should have sent a second, just to be safe. Bakabunshins. Kurenai-sensei and Rado-san are approaching, Hinata said before she suddenly started to giggle. Rado-san is carrying Terasu-san, she explained, seeing Naruto's confused look. It just looks strange. Well, embarrassing would be the better word, Terasu piggybacking like that. For some odd reason, though, she suddenly imagined Guy carrying Kakashi like that. That instantly and brutally killed every giggle she had in storage. That just seemed wrong. And it would never ever happen, right? She even started to doubt her own sanity for even thinking of something that horrid. Naruto sighed in relief, and turned to Fuka. Let's see if we can solve this mess without any further bloodshed. Or a haircut, in your case. 2 4-man squads stood in front of him. Every other step was accompanied by the sound of his cane tapping on the stone floor. He remained silent, and they remained immovable. None showed any emotions, despite the orders he had just given. The plan carried grave risks, yet they did not even blink. Have you understood? Yes, Danzo-sama, the man who was appointed to lead the 2 squads bowed. It will happen as you commanded. Self-sacrifice, that's what epitomizes a shinobi. Never seeing the light of day, toiling in the shadows. That's the way of a true shinobi. This world cannot function on ideals and pleasantries. You will be the one who keep the roots of the mighty tree of Konoha strong. Yes, Danzo-sama, all 8 exclaimed, bowing once before they left. Danzo's pink-haired student, wearing standard Anbu gear with a blank mask which symbolized that she was not yet really one of the root operatives yet, approached her master. You must be wondering why I chose this path. Danzo would have been amused if he had been anyone else. But he wasn't so frivolous with his emotions. Quote. So you have learned the value of silence. Good. To answer your unspoken question, he and his team will take that path to return to Konoha. There has been a change of plans. The loss of one of my more useful pawns has provided a good opportunity. Why are you telling me this, Danzo-sama? Sakura felt some minor shreds of confusion. As much emotion as she could still feel, after he had captured her in this genjutsu. She could fake emotions, quite well actually, but in truth most of her heart had been locked away together with her inner personality. The one secret she still had from Danzo, as she too had forgotten about her other self. In this underground facility, Haruno Sakura received her training. Her teachers were slightly dissatisfied with her physical condition. She lacked speed and stamina, yet packed quite a punch. Subconsciously she could gather chakra and release it at the exact moment she had to in order to increase the damage of her hits. It reminded Danzo of a certain Senju princess, who had recently taken Sakura as one of her students at the hospital, training her to become a medic. Perhaps the girl could learn more from that woman, eventually. After Senju Tsunade had returned and settled herself in Konoha, people had been flocking to her in hope of being taught by her. Once she had taken charge of the hospital, although it was a public secret that her assistant Shizune was the one who actually handled the daily affairs, Tsunade had agreed to take one class, and one class only, of 30 students at the most. At least, that was the plan right now. She had found several, like Sakura, who had both the talent, intelligence, and the determination to fit in that class, but Tsunade had not completed her selections yet. To the surprise of many, even the heiress of the Hyuga was invited. And accepted. A fact which surprised the Hyuga, Danzo knew. Similarly, that Uzumaki girl, Karen, was accepted to join the program. She somehow knew Tsunade and Shizune, although only few knew why. Danzo, naturally, was aware that Karen had not been found during the mission to retrieve Tsunade, as Jiraiya's report had claimed, but was instead someone left behind by Kusagaker, a village which foolishly believed her to have died in the Forest of Death during the Chunin exams. Idiots. The Uzumaki clan was nearly extinct, and they just left her for dead, not even caring enough to check properly if it was the truth. Amateurs. Sakura remained patient, although slightly uncomfortable, as Danzo stared at her. They are setting out to intercept a group of Konoha shinobi. Their target is the boy who let the last Uchiha slip away. For a moment he thought to see something in her eyes, a small flicker, but no, her heart had been broken by him, and Root had taken the shards, forging it into a far stronger weapon than she'd ever be on her own. Her training was still far from complete, though. Uzumaki Naruto is not an easy target. I did not send an easy team. Tell me, do you regret not being on that team? No, Danzo-sama. Why? Because I lack power. Danzo-sama. Yes, she had lacked the power to keep her team together. She lacked the power to protect her parents, even if she didn't know that it had been Danzo who ordered her father's death, nor had she been able to halt the boy she once cared for. Uchiha Sasuke. She didn't know whether to hate him, or to love him. The compromise was to just feel nothing. She somewhat missed the days when she felt that fuzzy feeling in her stomach, whenever she was thinking about Sasuke. But after what he had done, the emptiness she felt after Danzo liberated her was blissful compared to the pain that had preceded it. A correct assumption. The current estimates are that Uzumaki Naruto is strong, yet weaker than a Jonin, though it depends on the circumstances. Circumstances. His combat style relies on Fuinjutsu, in a way which is quite unorthodox, but the common weakness of Fuinjutsu remains that its users are vulnerable when caught off guard. Fighting against a well-prepared seal master is exceedingly difficult. Instead, it is better to lure him in a trap, fighting him in conditions where he cannot use his strongest jutsu simply because he doesn't get the time to create the seals. The time it takes to prepare Fuinjutsu will always be a weakness relative to regular ninjutsu. Is that why the Uchiha could escape? In part, yes. Uchiha Sasuke would not have survived the battle if Naruto had held the initiative. Although even in the given circumstances it required Orochimaru to step in to rescue his new minion. So, if he has time to prepare. A Fuinjutsu user is at his weakest if he has not prepared himself for battle, whereas a specialist in taijutsu, ninjutsu, or genjutsu would not suffer such problems. However, if he has the time to set up the necessary sealing arrays, I think he would even stand a chance against most Jonin of Konoha, in a one-on-one battle. Beyond that, there is the matter of him tapping into the chakra of the Kyuubi. With it, his speed and strength are amplified, and the threat he forms grows exponentially. But luckily my foolish old friend gave his life to weaken the boy, restricting the boy's chakra reserves, even if that was not his intention. Now, let us resume training. I will have to visit some people in an hour. Yes, Danzo-sama. Can you repeat one more time why we are dragging her to Konoha? Hiba-kun. I don't mind, Hinata-chan, Naruto chuckled. Like I said, Fuka attacked me, and with help from Hinata-chan I managed to trap her inside a barrier. After that, I convinced Terasu-san to create one last genjutsu scroll. And used it on her, Hiba repeated when Naruto had said earlier. But why? She lied to us all. Hiba, Kurenai had gotten a bit tired from the debate. Do you know how valuable a jutsu is to a hidden village? No. Naruto captured her because she showed several unusual jutsu, and he thinks that Konoha would want that information. Indeed, Naruto nodded. But considering how slippery she is, well, this was the best way, I think. And I allowed her to tag along because I wasn't really sure whether she was a threat or not. I had never expected her to hide her chakra like that. No one is flawless. Kurenai smiled when she saw him scowl a little. Obviously he didn't easily forgive himself for messing up like that. Terasu-san wasn't pleased. Rado smirked. He really hates those scrolls, doesn't he? I can't blame him. Naruto shrugged. Fuinjutsu isn't meant for such crap. It is sickening that Zenshi tried to stage a coup by using those pesky scrolls to create an army of mindless followers. Luckily, Fuka turned out to be an evil wig witch, so I can't really feel sorry for her. And after I made a promise to never try to redevelop that particular Fuinjutsu ever again, Terasu-san even gave me a few stacks of his notes. The Genjutsu seal itself has been destroyed. Is he that good? Karen wondered. That even you can learn from him. Sure as hell. I'm just a rookie in comparison, Nei-chan. I really need more time to read it all, but his theory that every jutsu can be translated to Fuinjutsu is brilliant, Naruto said enthusiastically. Really? I'm an amateur, with those petty explosions I can create, compared to him. Well, I have a few other jutsu too, but point is that he's way ahead of me. And he gave me the means to catch up. But are you sure that she can be trusted now, Naruto-kun? As sure as I can be that Rado can be trusted, Naruto smirked. As it depends on the power of those scrolls. But so far, I'd say she's safe and sound. Although the Naruto-sama thing somehow creeps me out. It just feels wrong to have a grown woman act like that. She said that before we reached Nami no Kuni too, Ni-san. Yeah, but back then I didn't know she was an evil wig witch, Naruto shuddered. Now it's just creepy to see her act so submissively. You think she'd really follow your every command? Hiba smirked, before being smacked on the head by both Karen and Kurenai at the same time. Hey. Naruto laughed, but couldn't help but to admit that the same impure thought had crossed his mind too. After her change in appearances, Fuka did looked pretty damn good. But the knowledge that she was just a wig with an animated body helped a lot to sober him up. And having seen her true personality was a true buzzkill. Not to mention he didn't feel anything for her, not like, no. Banish that thought, idiot, Naruto silently scolded himself. Fuka was now bound to obey Naruto, and he had ordered her to follow the commands from Kurenai and Rado too. They had decided that she was forbidden to use any jutsu, or any means of violence in general, against anyone who didn't provoke her into using it. Fuka was now sworn to become a good person, after which Naruto had told his own pre-adolescent mind to shut up and quit it with the dirty fantasies. Just like it shouldn't bring up images of a nude to Yuya, and switch her head with Hinata's, which, damn it. Not again. What the hell is wrong with me? Naruto-kun. You looked distracted. Hinata, for once, managed to talk without blushing. Remembering all too well how she always used to stutter, blush, and eventually faint, Naruto was quite impressed she had managed to recompose herself like this, considering his slip of the tongue in Nami. Not that he, back then, had realized that she only ever acted like that near him. He had once thought that the fainting was somehow caused by an illness. It was more likely that it was malnourishment, though. She did eat more ramen lately, and ever since she did that she had not fainted as much. It must be ramen. Ramen is the food of the gods, after all. Yes, ramen was a better subject to think about. Less dangerous. Less risk of the mind going haywire. Ramen. Ramen. Let's hurry. Ichiraku is waiting. Ni-san, Karen groaned. Ramen is great, but don't you think you're taking your obsession a little far? One can never be too serious about his ramen, Naruto proclaimed sagely. Why do I get the feeling that that was your sole reason to leave so quickly after breakfast? Hiba shook his head in disbelief. Tazuna, Tsunami, and even the oddly subdued Inari had all asked them to stay a little longer. Hiba and Karen had both been very much in favor of that plan, but sadly for them Kurenai and Rado had disagreed. The longer we'd have stayed, the more likely it would have been to draw attention to Terasu and his family. Naruto's voice was still as jokingly as before, but his eyes were serious. I'm not going to endanger anyone for food, Hiba. Not even for ramen. Rado frowned when he noticed Naruto's sudden shift in behavior. The boy had tensed a little, his hand had gone to the pocket where he kept his kunai. But why? Rado hadn't picked up a thing, other than a bird which flew up when. Wait, that was no bird, was it? Let's take a break, the Tokubetsu Jonin suggested. Limping back to his office, Shimura Danzo wondered if hadn't misjudged the young Haruno. She was not as untalented and expendable as he had initially expected. Not that she was extraordinary, like Yamanaka Fu or Aburame Torun, but she wasn't dime a dozen either. Her chakra reserves were rather pitiful, but her chakra control was extremely good. She was quite intelligent as well, yet had a bad habit of jumping to conclusions. Her impatience would be a critical flaw if she were to enter the field as an Anbu. But it was nothing that couldn't be changed. With a harsh training regime, the girl could become a capable Chunin or perhaps even Jonin, within a short amount of time. Especially now that she no longer wasted her time with foolish things like diets, trying to look good for the opposite sex. If Danzo needed a seductress for a mission, he'd just use one of the hookers from the clanless district, who were unwanted anyway. Expendable enough so that none would notice them disappear. Regardless of the worth that Haruno Sakura might have, the girl from Otogakure was a problem far greater. Danzo wouldn't skip a beat if it meant disposing one talented girl, if it meant the removal of that threat. The continued existence of Root was far more important than any single member. The Haruno girl was worth more than anticipated, but still not enough. She was the only tool he had who might gain access to the Uzumaki compound, in case other plans would fail. The ideal situation would be if he had another tool to sacrifice in order to get that Oto girl out of the picture, while keeping the Haruno girl around to spy on Tsunade. Unfortunately, this was not an ideal world. In an ideal world, that perverted fool Jiraiya would not have been elected as the Godime Hokage. At least, in Danzo's view on what an ideal world entailed. Danzo, Hyuga Eiji, one of the oldest members of the main house of the clan, spoke up. Eiji, don't be so impatient, it is rude, Hideo chided his fellow council member. Eiji was one of the more unruly puppets which Hideo had installed in the clan council. The silent old woman next to him was far more docile, doing whatever Hideo ordered her to. Although it was just a matter of time before she would no longer be able to hide the progressing state of dementia that was tearing down her once acute mind. But for now she was useful. And as long as she still knew how to shut up, Hideo didn't need her to get an accident, either. I see you already entered my office. Danzo was slightly annoyed that they were let in without prior warning. Not that the really important files were left atop his desk, but still, Hyuga Hideo, the former head of the Hyuga clan, was a dangerously intelligent opponent. It was unfortunate for him that his son had exceeded him in martial prowess, which meant succeeding him as head as well, according to Hyuga tradition. On the other hand, Hiyashi was easier to manipulate than this old goat. Even if he is only a few years my senior, the way he acts, it isn't surprising he lost his position to his son. Hideo is far too complacent. If he had maintained a strict regime of training, he would have been far stronger than he is now. Your assistant was so kind to let us in, Hideo countered. Although I dare say that kindness is not the right word to use for your minions, is it? You are early. Yes, we had a good opportunity to slip away unnoticed, Eiji tapped with his foot, still impatient. This situation is getting worse and worse. We were sure we could brand that weak-hearted brat after she disobeyed direct orders, and yet that fool refused. My son cares too much about his daughters, Hideo agreed. It is his weakness, no matter how hard he tries to hide it. He might see his eldest as insufficient, but it doesn't mean he isn't willing to give her more opportunities to prove herself. But once Hanabi becomes genin, and she outperforms her sister permanently, he will have no way to keep protecting his eldest, Eiji huffed. The fool is only delaying the inevitable. Anyone can see that Hanabi is the gifted one. Hideo sighed. That Hanabi had more talent in the Juken style was undeniable, although many forgot about how Hanabi had been when she was younger. Always following her elder sister, Hanabi had been as soft and gentle as Hinata. But Hanabi had changed. And yet, Hinata had something. There was something with her that didn't add up. Just like Hitomi. Hideo had never managed to figure out how Hitomi had gotten so skilled with her insight. It was as if she could see straight through anyone, picking apart their emotions, uncovering their secret intentions. She was a real thorn in his side, even more because she had Hiyashi's ear. It pained Hideo to admit, but his son would rather listen to Hitomi than to him. When will the plan be set in motion? It already has been, Danzo said calmly. 2 squads are biding their time, waiting for the right opportunity. Good, Hideo smiled. The sooner she is out of the picture, the better. It amused Danzo to see these power-hungry old fools. Too short-sighted to see what was really at stake here. The Haruno girl had stated it as it was. Harm Hinata and Naruto will become reckless enough to try to do something stupid. The perfect opportunity. Risky, yes, but it was the best way to lure the boy away from his defenses. The Uzumaki compound was a rather big annoyance in Danzo's plans. No, by targeting someone dear to the boy, Danzo's plans would go so much smoother, and if it pleased these fools, then it was only an added bonus. Short-sighted or not, they did carry a lot of wealth and political influence. Useful pawns for Root. Though there was only one piece in this game which really held Danzo's interest, and that was the Jinchuriki. Whoever controlled that boy controlled the key to the future of Konoha. Good thing that it hadn't taken much out of Shisui's eye to convert the Haruno girl. The Kyuubi had proven to be weak to the Sharingan, and Danzo was planning to let it meet the strongest of all the Sharingan. Once that brat lost his foolish ethics, he'd soon become the strongest pawn on the entire board, including the foreign powers. Any concessions made to these fools right now could easily be reversed once Naruto stood with Root. And if the boy stood at his side, Danzo was sure that he could make Konoha stronger than ever, and then he could unite all the villages under his banner, a banner of peace. It was ironic how everyone called him a warmonger, while he secretly aimed for peace. Now, back to business. Let's see if Jiraiya's ploy to lure Orochimaru into the northern regions worked. Using the demand from the daimyo as a way to make it seem that we destabilize the region is far more cunning than I anticipated. But I highly doubt the pretense of having our defenses weakened will lure much of Otogakure's forces over the border. Orochimaru has the prey he wanted now, so I doubt he will waste too many resources on gathering more civilians for his experiments. The fact that Jiraiya managed to hide this side of the whole ploy from me is worrisome, though. I had presumed that the Chiji was his real target. He must have cleaned up his network, though that was to be expected after blatantly feeding him false information like that. Luckily, so far it doesn't seem like he is aware of my ties with the ambitious fool. Ah well, it didn't matter. Securing the daimyo's allegiance could be done in a myriad of other ways. Orochimaru was a stronger ally, and the Uchiha brat was expendable because his clan didn't fit in Danzo's plans anyway. Orochimaru could have the boy. Compared to the Jinchuriki, the Uchiha was simply a pawn of lesser importance. It was a construct made of chakra, Rado clarified. It was spying on us. The pup barked something. It was ink, Kiba translated. How he knew what Akamaru was saying was something none of them knew, but it certainly was a useful skill. Probably an Inuzuka thing. Chakra conducting ink. I don't see anyone nearby. Hinata had her Byakugan activated. Nor do I sense anyone, Karen chimed in. Me neither. Naruto sighed. But ink, it could be false alarm, or not. Naruto-kun. There are plenty of people within Konoha who try to keep track of me, Hinata-chan, Naruto smiled sadly. Some out of their own interests, people who fear that I'm the Kyuubi, and that it took over my mind or something like it. I bet there are even some who to try to figure out how to dispose of me in ways that they can get away with it. But there is one, no, there are multiple of those guys, who just look at me. Look from a distance. I can't feel any malice from them, that's the freaky part, but they are always watching me. Isn't that the paranoia which the Kyuubi forced onto you? Kurenai suggested carefully. No, sensei. At least, not all of it, the blonde admitted wryly. No, those guys are very real. Who are they? I don't know. Not for sure. At least, Naruto sighed. Half of the time I can't even spot them, which is the annoying bit. But recently I can't go through the village without them watching me. Perhaps they did so before as well, but that I simply couldn't spot them, I'm not sure. They seems like Anbu. But Hokage said he didn't send Anbu after me. Rato's eyes narrowed, and gave a sharp look at Kurenai, who nodded. In that case it is wise you avoid any conflict. But why bring that up now? She acts. Mice. One of those guys uses mice made out ink, animated by chakra somehow. If not for all the seals and barriers I created, I would never have noticed them. But they've never tried to track me down this far out of the village. At least, not that I am aware of. So are we going to be attacked? Karen wasn't exactly looking forward to a battle against people from Konoha, of all places. They were allies, right? Or was the village truly not as happy as she had believed? Those people, they are from Konoha, right? Whether they are or not is not an issue, Rato grumbled. When they decide to attack, they are traitors to Konohagakure, and it becomes our duty to remove them. Team, seal away your packings. Kurenai turned to Karen, Hinata, and Kiba. The three of you, and Akamaru too, will all take a Hyogen military rations pill. Hinata and Karen are to keep an eye on the road ahead, take turns. Kiba, you and Akamaru will be on the alert for any unusual scent. The two had held themselves out of the discussion so far, but Fuka now spoke up. Naruto-sama, do you require me to fight as well? If we are ambushed, you are free to kill our enemies. But no kissing, understand? Yes, Naruto-sama. Let's move on, Kurenai commanded. She was the highest ranking shinobi right now, with Rato after her, and Naruto as Chunin being third. I think they noticed my bird, the young root operative who bore the name, Sai, warned his superior. The Jinchuriki has very keen senses. You think the theory about him noticing us when we were tracking him inside the village is true? Another operative, a female with short blonde hair, questioned. Is he able to sense us? No, their leader, a grizzled Jonin-level operative who lived through many missions, answered. His voice was completely void of any emotion, which was no surprise as he was one of Root's longest-serving operatives who still worked in the field. Murdering his training partner had broken him, perhaps, but the horrors he had seen and inflicted during his many missions had scraped away the last shreds of humanity he still had. He was only known by the name, Hokage, because he rarely had to rush the other operatives usually referred to him as Ho. Jinchuriki are said to possess enhanced senses, Sai noted. But he did not notice my bird because of my chakra. Nor did he ever show signs of being able to sense us because of our negative emotions. Indeed, Ho agreed. The main issue we face is the Uzumaki girl. We can cloak ourselves from the Byakugan, so we can at least minimize the risk of the Hyuga easily spotting us from large distances, but the Uzumaki girl is an unknown. Danzo-sama stated that she was involved in the mission to find Senju Tsunade. If she could find Senju, she might be able to spot us, the other Jonin-level operative, one whose name was not known to Sai, remarked. This man was the second in command, even though he was barely 10 years older than Sai was. A testament to his skill. Senju is known to hide her chakra very well. This was a fact known to Sai as well. It was known to all Root operatives that Danzo, their master, had hated it how Tsunade had been allowed to walk away from the village. In Danzo's view, she should have been marked as a missing nin, rather than being allowed to go on an extended leave. Several operatives had tried to capture or assassinate her, shortly after she left Konoha. But none had returned. Other than that, it was a public secret in Konoha that Tsunade always hid herself to avoid creditors. Sarutobi Hiruzen might have allowed her to go on an extended leave, he did not allow her to murder countless civilians. And this would have been inevitable, considering the amount of debts she could gather, combined with her temper. Sai watched the road, wondering if their plans were good enough to suit this mission. Yuhi Kurenai was known and feared as a genjutsu mistress. Namiyashi Rato was an expert assassin who could easily measure himself with even the best Root operatives, and then there was the Jinchuriki himself. He had not been there to see it, but he had felt the battle, even if he wasn't much of a sensor. The clash between Tsunagakure's Jinchuriki and the monster that was Konoha's own. Their chakra had been unreal, both in how vile it was and the sheer amounts of it. Sai was mildly curious if this team was fit to subdue a monster like that, even though the boy did not seem to be that special when Sai had tracked him through the village. Sure, the boy was talented, considering how quickly he had risen to the rank of Chunin in spite of the ways people viewed him, but to say that this was the key to controlling the village and quite possibly the world, perhaps the battle would create scenes which Sai could paint later on. A Jinchuriki would be a fitting opponent to fit on the centerfold of the book he and Shin had. Shin, the brother that Sai had lost long ago. But such was the fate of those within Root, although Shin was at least taken by illness, not Sai's blade. Ho signaled. The group was approaching, having picked up the pace after a short break, so everyone was to hold position as planned. The two Jonin-level operatives would engage Yuhi and Namiyashi, giving Ho the opportunity to engage the Jinchuriki. The other 5 would quickly terminate the 3 genin, as well as the civilian whom was seen to accompany the group. Once those 4 were terminated, the 5 operatives could join their seniors and take down the Jonin and the Tokubetsu Jonin, after which they could all focus on the Jinchuriki. It was a fairly simple plan, in spite of the importance of the mission. Besides, they were carrying Iwagakure Hitai 8, so even if 1 or 2 of them would escape, it would only lead to a conflict with Iwa. Sai let the ink falcon, which he had created before they had all suppressed their chakra to the absolute minimum, go. It would signal the other 2 teams. All pieces were now moving. What could go wrong? Bonus. S-Class Lingerie, 1. All I did was ask for another box of strawberries. I'd almost forgotten how much those assholes hate my gut. I suppose it doesn't matter whether I stop the Ikibi from a rampage or anything. Naruto wasn't exactly in the best of moods when he jumped across the rooftops, quickly heading home after shopping for groceries. He quickly saw, however, that his mood wasn't the worst. The little boy who was plodding through the back alley seemed to radiate a depression which surpassed even that of good old Inari. How are you doing, boss? Sorta. I'm a clone. Naruto smiled, a bit surprised to see Konohamaru all teary. Then again, Hiruzen's death was still fresh in his own memories as well. He couldn't blame the boy. Get on my shoulders. Piggyback ride, Naruto clarified. I'll take you to the estate. You need some distraction. And if there is anything at the Uzumaki grounds, it would be distraction. And I brought plenty of food for one more to chip in. But I won't take no for an answer, Naruto smirked. Ebisu won't let me, the downcast boy muttered. That closet pervert with sunglasses. Naruto mused. He had a score to settle with that glaring son of a chipmunk, so why not do something like this? A perfect vengeance. Konohamaru, I have the perfect jutsu for you, a guaranteed one-hit knockout against Ebisu. Really? Really? So, what's the jutsu you're going to teach me? Konohamaru asked somewhat eagerly. Being warned by Akko that Naruto loved explosions had made the young Sarutobi a bit wary. You said Ebisu would be knocked out in one hit. He will, Naruto, the real one this time, smirked. In fact, I developed this one especially for prudish people like him. I grew up at the Hyuga estate, and they're all straight-laced like hell. But why against closet perverts? Konohamaru frowned. This jutsu is super effective, believe it. Once you master it, you can drain their blood in seconds. Wow, but isn't that dangerous? They'll be enthralled. You can order them to do whatever you want, Naruto continued, with an overconfidence which Konohamaru had never seen in the older boy. It's all in the curves, Konohamaru. The curves are key. Curves. Oroku no Jutsu. Konohamaru coughed when a cloud of smoke erupted around Naruto. As it drifted apart, the boy saw his impromptu sensei stand in the center of that mist. His hair long, his posture as seductive as it could be, and his curves, her curves. Konohamaru couldn't see the important bits, which were shrouded in mist, but it left all the more to his imagination. Quote. I don't get it. Konohamaru blinked. So you became a nude girl. So what? Naruto transformed back into his real form. So what? You really are a kid. Hey, I'm 8 years old, yo. Yeah, and that's the problem, Naruto deadpanned. Don't worry. It was a prank when I first created the jutsu, and it took me a while to figure out why it was so effective. Just trust me when I say that it'll work on Ebisu. So let's put you to work. Mitarashi Anko was just returning from a very satisfying day at the torture and interrogation department. Ibiki loved it to talk people to death, but she'd rather get her hands dirty. Some poisons here, some torture devices there, and the client would soon scream out every bit of information Anko wanted. Yes, it had been a fun afternoon. And now she suddenly saw two naked young women. This is closed off. Wait, you've got whiskers, she noticed the blonde woman. What the hell is this? Naruto and Konohamaru dropped their seductive transformations and both looked rather sheepish now that they were caught. Oroku no Jutsu, Naruto explained. That's brilliant, Anko suddenly exclaimed. And I just happen to know the one thing that would keep my mouth shut when I'm near Akko. So unless you want her to find out about this. 2 months later, Ino jealously stood in front of the recently opened S-class lingerie shop. The poster girls had curves that made her jealous, almost to the point of falling for a girl, and their skimpy underwear made her feel like she was prudish. And the best part was that it was all lingerie designed for kunoichi, which they would be able to wear even during missions. Shikamaru, standing next to her, was drooling slightly. The brunette on the poster was hot, but the blonde, scratch that idea of marrying an average-looking girl. If I see her, I might fall on my knees without a second thought. Damn, I suppose that's why Kiba said that I should check this out. They're hot, aren't they? Anko grinned. Such good-looking models aren't easy to get, but I spared no expense. No kidding. Where do they live? Shikamaru asked absent-mindedly. Looking green and nauseous, little Konohamaru tried to run away. Yet another male of their village who had fallen for the charms of their Oroku no Jutsu. It was disgusting him. He felt violated. Anko's new shop was thriving, but Konohamaru regretted the day that Naruto taught him that jutsu. This shame would never wash away. But at least they had escaped a certain Hyuga's wrath. Chapter 69. Ambush. Frightening. That was what it was. During the wait before combat it felt like time had frozen, and now all of a sudden everything happened simultaneously. She had sensed them first. Or, seen, as Kurenai liked to say, with her inner eye. Karen didn't know how to name it, nor could she really be bothered with naming it. As long as she saw or felt what she wanted, it was good for her. And to think she once loathed her ability, well, that was a time when she was treated like human cattle. Valued for her bloodline, and that alone. Konoha was different, Karen had liked to think. Here she had friends, real friends, friends who'd even risk themselves for her. Though, Karen had to admit she'd rather see Kiba to be more than just a friend. He had been the one who saved her, when all seemed lost. No, she'd never forget that moment she first saw Kiba. Him saving her was a gift of Kami, and had been the starting point of her new life. A life where she had a brother and a clan. Uzumaki Naruto, the boy who was both one of the kindest people she knew and the most terrifying at the same time. Right now it was the latter. Karen had noticed them first. And when she pointed out the direction, Hinata had seen through their camouflaging techniques. So when the barrage of kunai, senbon, and the various jutsu descended upon them, it hadn't surprised any of them. The three strongest opponents had split up. A blonde man focusing on Kurenai, the oldest and strongest man focusing on Naruto, and the thin woman had targeted Rado. The one-on-one tactics had not been expected, but their attackers made a critical mistake. The five weaker Iwa shinobi had targeted her, Kiba, and Hinata, but apparently none had known about Fuka being a kunoichi. Two of them had not been able to survive that mistake. Having been granted permission from Naruto to cut loose, Fuka had used a strange futon jutsu, forming small whirlwind-like balls with the palm of her hand, shooting them at the unfortunate attackers by seemingly blowing the balls with her mouth. A very fast and rather devastating attack. Their masks had not been able to withstand the jutsu, and neither had their skulls. Seeing their heads explode in a mist of gray and red vapor was a rather gruesome sight. The third had not been caught off guard, having come to the conclusion that Fuka was no mere civilian. But her hair had bound the boy, who was barely older than Karen, and that gave Hinata the perfect opportunity to use her clan's taijutsu style. One strike to the neck and the boy was a goner. Hinata looked rather sickly and would have been hit by the fourth ambusher if not for well-timed intervention of Kiba and Akamaru. Akamaru was already looking like a feral copy of Kiba, through the use of the Jujin Bunshin, beast-human clone, and together the duo was rather difficult to engage in close combat. The fifth of the weaker opponents was already occupied by Fuka, who seemed to take a perverse joy out of killing her opponents, leaving Kiba's opponent to Team 8. Hinata. Karen grabbed her by the shoulder. Kiba-kun is fighting, we have to help him. The pale, far paler than usual, Hyuga nodded. They'd have to take down their opponent and then back up the others. Yes, Karen was afraid. Not really for herself, although she'd rather not die now that she finally enjoyed life, but for her friends. The image of Choji's death haunted her, and Karen was terrified to see Kiba, Naruto, or Hinata like that. Naruto was smirking viciously at his masked opponent. They wore different masks and had Hitai-8 from Iwagakure, making them look like the real deal, but Naruto knew it was just a fraud. These idiots weren't from Iwa, but from Konoha. That knowledge awoke something within him, something animalistic which he had thought to have vanished after Hiruzen had repaired his seal. You should try again, he taunted. As expected, his opponent did not give any reaction. Having been warned about Danzo, Naruto had talked Jiraiya into giving Naruto some information that should have been above his rank. Root. These were Danzo's puppets, or at least they had been. The clandestine division of Anbu had officially been dismantled years ago, after all the wars had ended and the Sandaime had ceased to close his eyes for Danzo's blatant transgressions. The way they were trained had been something special, but Naruto hadn't been able to get to know the specifics. All Jiraiya had said was that Danzo had a strong belief that emotions should only hold a shinobi back, thus training his minions in a way that killed any sense of sentiment or emotional attachment. It was rather stupid, or so Naruto believed. To him, the only thing that had crossed his mind had been that Danzo was a coward. To cowards, emotions were a burden during battle, as those emotions crippled their abilities. But a person without emotions fought for nothing, for no one. It would create a fighter without reasons to endure and persist. That was weakness. Naruto had thought that Danzo lacked that sort of courage, that the man simply didn't know how strong emotions a person could make. Or perhaps he failed during some key moment of his life, having been too terrified to succeed. Naruto hadn't particularly cared about that ideology. It sounded too much like the shinobi or tools thing. He remembered Haku's remark, on everyone needing a reason to fight for. He remembered Haruki's teachings, the wisdom of Sarutobi Hiruzen, and all those others who brought him to this point, even when there had been so many things in his 13 years that could have killed him. Or worse, being taken over by the Kyuubi and becoming a threat to his friends was most definitely worse than dying. But now that Naruto was facing this man from Root, he realized he had underestimated the effect it had of facing an opponent who lacked emotions. Not being able to lure someone into stupid actions, for one. But it also had something creepy. When the chakra-clad bow staff had hit the man on his shoulder, when the man had been busy avoiding a clone who had fired futon, Rinkuden air bullets, the man had barely responded. A pained grunt, yes, but no anger or fear, or anything. Usually, Naruto had managed to piss his opponents off to the level that they carelessly walked into the ceiling arrays which had been prepared. But this grizzled man only moved backwards while fighting, rather than closing in on Naruto, making any seal which Naruto put down useless. Well, he's faster than me, I gotta give him that, Naruto sighed. Aren't you getting tired with playing around? Kill that old fool. Relax. They seemed to have been planning to take out Hinata-chan, Kiba, and Karen Ni-chan first, that's why those 5 guys rushed past us while these stronger guys occupied us. So, the Kyuubi sounded rather bored. Just take a bit of my chakra and wipe them from the face of this pitiful continent. Those little rats shouldn't pose a big problem. Tempting offer, but don't think that I'm that much of a fool. Naruto smiled slightly, dodging a kunai thrown by his opponent. Those guys didn't count on Fuka. I saw her picking those guys apart, which will give the others the opportunity to help Kurenai-sensei and Rado. Which leaves you biding your time like a weakling. Don't be so frustrated, furball. Stop calling me that, you measly sack of meat. Naruto had to duck, nearly being caught off guard when his opponent used his katana to send out a slashing gust of wind. Futon. I bet Danzo thought that it would be a good idea to use one futon specialist to fight the other. Quote. What? You're not even surprised that I know that this whole Iowa thing is a cheap charade. Quote. You emotionless dudes really take the thrill out of combat, you know, Naruto sighed with feigned hurt. Pranking opponents is usually the only enjoyable part the entire thing. The man never really rushed, but always seemed to find the right time and place to slip through Naruto's guard. Fortunately for Naruto, the katana only chopped a log of wood in two. Sharp blade, Naruto chuckled, not willing to show the man how close that had been. Two could play this game, so Naruto refused to show any of his emotions which could hint at weakness. I wondered how long it would take before you would move forward. A barrier erected behind him, a courtesy of two grinning clones, and Ho saw the log of wood glow and explode. With his escape route blocked, he lunged to Naruto's right, and... Wrong choice. Naruto shook his head. Several seals detonated, and the grizzled man jumped away with singeing clothes. That direction is worse, by the way. When Naruto had noticed how cautious the man was, seemingly biding time just as he was, Naruto had deemed it safe to use the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu a bit more. Spreading his chakra over multiple bodies posed some risks now that his reserves weren't as ridiculous as before, but as long as he didn't have to fight close combat, Naruto reckoned he wouldn't miss the edge on speed and strength. Besides, with all those clones stalking around, Naruto had set up quite some seals already, offsetting any weakness they caused him. I see you're holding your own. Kurenai-sensei. Naruto smiled, although the woman noted that the usual glint of mischief in the boy's blue eyes was absent. The others are finished. Rado and Fuka are busy capturing the last one. Hyuga got a cut when he aided Rado, but other than that they're all fine. Well, Kurenai knew Hinata was off. The girl had killed someone. Although she had stammered something about having wanted to incapacitate her opponent, she seemed to have applied too much chakra. Kurenai knew the girl was stronger than most gave her credit for, but was well aware that she'd need to have a good talk with her favorite even though a sensei wasn't allowed to play favorite student. Good. This guy is too good to be caught easily. I would swear he has the Sharingan, considering how he constantly manages to evade my seals at the last possible moment. Sure. The man got caught up in the explosion, but he evaded the worst of it at every turn. Keep him occupied, Kurenai ordered. The wolfish grin plastered on Naruto's face was her only answer. True to his word, the clones went on the offense. The weakened shoulder posed a problem to the root operative, hurting him with every fast movement. But Ho couldn't afford to do things at his own pace anymore. What the individual clones lacked at speed, they compensated with numbers. Especially when they got downright suicidal. Point-blank explosions formed a rather big distraction. Then again, the clones knew they were quickly running out of chakra, with their limited reserves, so waiting longer was rather pointless for them. Amidst the chaos, Ho lost track of the Jonin that had joined the boy. He knew his position was unfavorable, but he had to succeed. For the sake of Konoha, for a better future. Their plans had been perfect, except for the presence of that seductive vixen who they had mistaken for a civilian. Fuka had turned the plan against them. For a moment, Ho wondered why Danzo hadn't sent backup, why there had not been a team acting as a contingency measure, in case everything went wrong. It was almost, yes, his logical mind could only reach one possible conclusion. They were pawns that had been sacrificed. That realizing caused the usually emotionless man to falter for just a fraction of a second, the time it took for him to accept his intended fate. That moment of hesitation had been the moment when Kurenai struck. Under the influence of Megan, Jubaku Satsu, demon illusion, tree-binding death, Ho found himself rendered immobile. The mirage of a fast-growing tree confused the man momentarily. Its branches coiled themselves around him, keeping him firmly in place. For a moment he thought he was facing an opponent with the Mokuden bloodline, that it was the traitorous Anbu who had left Root long ago who now showed up to protect the Jinchuriki. When Kurenai emerged from the trunk of the tree, however, he knew it wasn't that. It was all a genjutsu. Ho had served Root for a long time, and had seen many men and women enter and leave the organization. The latter nearly always as a corpse. With the interest which Danzo held in bloodlines, Ho had seen many strange abilities. Including one where people could create illusions simply by drawing a picture. That accursed man from the Kurama clan had been unstable and dangerous, just as easily turning against his allies as against his enemies. At that time the man known as Ho had only been a boy, 13 or 14 years old, only recently having forgotten the name his parents once had given him. Whether based on sound, sight, smell, or other sensations, illusions always held certain weaknesses. This particularly illusion was based on touch. The feeling of not being able to move, and the fear it could induce. Except, a root operative was supposed to have left any fear behind. Perhaps this was what gave him the opportunity. Perhaps it was his decades of experience. Perhaps it was the pain which he was already suffering, that hampered the illusion for just a second. The kunai which Kurenai held in her hand slipped by his throat, as the root operative dodged at the last second. The wound was grave, and he felt his clothes quickly dampening and soaking with his blood. There were many veins in one's neck, and Kurenai had hit several. But not enough to instantly kill him. Stumbling away from the Jonin, Ho suddenly felt cold. Something was running down his chest, and he felt tired. Too tired. Emotionlessly or not, behind his mask he grimaced when he noticed the metal sticking through his chest. Naruto's chakra-reinforced bow had pierced right through. The boy had stabbed at the exact moment when the root operative had moved away from Kurenai. Damn, to think, I have no options. A past long forgotten, a life abandoned since his teens, but the nameless man only known as Ho to his fellow root Anbu held one trump card of that discarded life. One of the few things which he had kept, one of the things which set him apart as an assassin, was the skill which his parents had taught him long ago. A skill honed by many uses on his unsuspecting victims. Shintention no Jutsu, mind-body switch technique, he grinned mirthlessly behind his mask, blood gulping out of his mouth. His body was dying, but his mind would last for just a little while longer. And that blue-eyed brat was standing still, startled by the sudden usage of this technique, just long enough for the nameless Yamanaka to invade the boy's mind. Naruto. Kurenai rushed to the boy, who wobbled for a moment. Don't worry, sensei, I'm okay, he chuckled. Hey, and here I thought only Ba-chan could look that concerned. But, Shintention. Yeah, the poor sot really thought it would make a difference, the Uzumaki shook his head. Ah well, perhaps the Kyuubi will shut up for a while now. Quote, question mark quote. That guy succeeded in getting in, but he ended up at the wrong side of the bars, Naruto smirked. And suddenly he became contemplative. I suppose I should ask Ino whether or not this really counts as the first meal the Kyuubi had since he got sealed within me. She paled. Kurenai's red eyes fixated on Naruto. It ate him. Yup. Naruto shrugged. I'll seal the body. I guess we should regroup before we continue to go back to Konoha. I bet Hokage will be very interested in these corpses. Maybe it'll be enough to get rid of the cripple bastard Danzo. I take it that was your work. The titanic fox-shaped Biju used one of his claws to remove a bone that had ended up getting stuck between its incisors. I could not allow someone to just enter the realm outside of this prison, the entity posing as Uzumaki Ryota shrugged indifferently. After our previous uninvited guest, I influenced the boy's subconscious to make some precautions. I don't intend to let just about anyone see the vision that I made for him. Why would you recreate Uzushiogakure? What do you mean? The man remained polite as ever, despite having just witnessed the Kyuubi eat a man. What is so damn special about Uzushiogakure? I always stayed far away from that damn place, the fox growled. Damn Fuinjutsu. You and you brethren were right to fear the Uzumaki clan. Ryota seemed amused by the irritation he saw on the Biju. But that was not the only reason. I think not even the 9 realized why they instinctively stayed away from Uzushiogakure. What's that supposed to mean? The boy must learn the legacy of Uzushio, Kyuubi. He must learn about its roots, or the world shall wither away. Even you must feel that the time is drawing to a close. What? The Kyuubi blinked, surprised by the words of the puny man. What time? Did your father teach you nothing? Ryota chuckled, before he turned to leave the prison. The outside world was far more comfortable. Even if it was but a reflection from the last time he had seen it, the sunny skies and warm summer breeze of Uzushiogakure always filled him with a nostalgic joy unlike any other. Hiba grit his teeth, straining not to let the pain he felt be too visible on his face. The wound that the root operative had inflicted on him had been poisoned, and although the effects of the poison were not lethal, it did cause quite a bit of pain. Enough to cripple him. It seemed like the 5 who had targeted him, Hinata, and Karen, had not been aiming to kill them. Oddly, while Karen also had a scratch on her back, the poison had little effect on her. She was fortunate, although she had decided to ask Tsunade about this once she got back. Who was less fortunate, on the other hand, was the last living assailant, as Fuka had been aiming for the kill until she was ordered to capture the boy alive. Rado had stated that there were 5 corpses which might contain valuable information. Just like Naruto had done, Rado had sealed the corpses for future usage. The intelligence division might be able to extract something from them, providing evidence against the true perpetrator behind this attack. What are you planning to do with this one? Rado frowned, wondering why Naruto had suggested to keep the last of their assailants alive. These guys won't break. I checked, but they all have a seal on their tongues, preventing them to spill any information. Yeah, I know, Naruto agreed. But this shithead needs to know who he's messing with. Pulling off the mask revealed a pale boy, barely older than Naruto himself, who looked at them without showing any emotion. Fuka had enjoyed the battle very much, but the boy whose current codename was Sai had enjoyed it significantly less. Pierced by spikes of hair, scorched by fire, ragged by wind, and some severe internal injuries as a consequence of a nasty Doden jutsu. Rado's interference had felt more as a rescue than a capture to Sai. Or perhaps an elongation of the tortuous pain the boy must feel at the moment. Too dickless to finish the job, Sai suggested, defiant to the end. Or perhaps longing to end his suffering. He and his team had failed, and their usefulness to Danzo and Root had ended. Death was the fastest solution. Torture and interrogation would be uncomfortable. And probably fruitless too. Yes, a quick end would be preferable. Your job hasn't ended, dipshit. Naruto's eyes were colder than Karen had ever seen them since his seal had been mended. You will tell that idiot who sent you, Shimura Danzo, that I'm going to kill him if he pulls one more stunt like this. And yes, I know who your master is. Did you really think that dressing up like Iwa Nin would change a freaking thing? There's only one group who feels as empty on the inside, and that's you. No negative emotions for me to sense might be an advantage for you, but it is also rather distinctive. Quote, quote. Of course, you're trained well enough to never utter a word about these things. Or perhaps forced to silence through other means. I don't give a damn. Just remember to pass the message to Danzo. I'm going to tear that guy limb from limb if he ever endangers my friends again. Counselor or not, I will not show any mercy. Kurenai and Rado exchanged a look, both concerned by the threat Naruto was now issuing. Shimura Danzo was a veteran, and only the most intelligent and dangerous shinobi lived to see his age. Crippled or not, there wasn't much doubt whether the man still deserved his position as Jonin or not. It seems like I was mistaken, Sai smiled. Or at least, it was a pained grimace which seemed to be meant to resemble a smile, albeit being a very poor attempt. You aren't dickless, but you are brainless. Clearly the Jinchuriki had no clue who he was dealing with. Or was it Sai who was underestimating his opponent? I could just kill you here and now, and instead just take out Danzo without any warning, Naruto suggested. That got through to Sai. His shoulders took a more rigid posture, and Naruto definitely saw a flash of doubt in the boy's eyes. Taking out a kunai, Naruto cut the ropes by which Sai had been bound. Move. I accept the fact that Danzo is necessary to maintain the peace within Konoha, but I'm not going to show mercy if he ever pulls stupid shit like this again. Understood, Sai mumbled, turning around just before he limped away. A warning in return for a warning seems fair. My team was not the only one out in the field today. A second ambush. Rado frowned when the young Root operative rushed away as fast as his injured body could carry him. I doubt that. Kurenai shook her head. If there were more of them, they would have launched one unified attack. If there was a second group waiting, they would have attacked the moment it became clear that this group was losing. Probably, Naruto agreed, after which he turned to Fuka. Thank you for your aid, Fuka. It was my pleasure. Naruto-sama. She gave him a beautiful smile, one that made Rado wonder why it left Naruto so completely indifferent. But from now on out, you're not going to be this sadistic when you're forced to fight. As you command, even if she didn't like his command, she didn't show it. Or could not, Rado guessed. And no violence unless you've got no other option left. This attack was a one-time exception. Yes, Naruto-sama. Let's move. I bet Hokage will want to know what just happened. The short message he had sent with Gamakichi had not contained too many details, fearing what might happen if the message fell in the wrong hands. Konoha would not benefit from rumors that there was an open conflict between one of the councilmen and the Jinchuriki. How are you doing, Kiba? Naruto's clones had let down the improvised stretcher on which they had carried Kiba, and were currently helping the Inuzuka to get on his feet, aided by Karen, of course. Fever, was what he said with chattering teeth. Cold. Warm. Cold again. Feel like shit. Ba-chan will patch you up when we get back. Though I bet Nei-chan will want to comfort you too, the blonde chuckled, a nod to how eager Karen had been to support Kiba. It was a remark that was rewarded with a punch to the gut, popping the clone. Ni-san is right. Those clones are getting worse and worse. Smartasses. Seeing that Kiba was in good hands, and that Rado kept an eye on Fuka, Kurenai turned and began to look for her other hurt student. Contrary to Kiba, Hinata suffered from something that would be more difficult to treat. Her first kill. It worried Kurenai. The gentle girl was not the type to. Kurenai was afraid the girl wasn't ready for this. In fact, Hinata had stated that she had hit the Tenketsu perfectly, just as intended, but that she had overestimated the amount of chakra that she had used. Rather than just closing off the Tenketsu and knocking him out, the girl had severed her victim's spine, causing such internal injury that death followed. And Kurenai blamed herself for it. She had been the one who had trained Hinata to increase her chakra reserves. Hina, Kurenai started, intending to draw the girl's attention. It was her duty as sensei to make her students understand this nigh inevitable part of their profession. Killing someone was never easy, at least not to Kurenai. She could still remember her first kill. The look of fear in her opponent's eyes was something that would still haunt her dreams at times. She smiled, however, when she realized that Hinata already had someone to vent her emotions at. The girl was still more or less frozen after she let go of him, but now she was holding Naruto by his sleeve as if she was lost and he was the only one who knew the way. It was a logical consequence, Kurenai realized, as Naruto was the only one of Hinata's age who was known to have killed. He had done that more often than Kurenai would have liked, even. But even if he knows what it is to kill, does he realize how Hinata feels? I should stay out of this, but I should keep an eye on them. Hinata-chan. They had just decided to take a break when Naruto noticed that the girl had wandered away from their camp. What's wrong? She didn't talk, and considering how she was turned away from him, he couldn't see her expression either, but her shoulders were shaking. She was crying, soundlessly. Naruto didn't really know why she did it, but it pained him to see her like this. When he took a cautious step towards her, she suddenly turned towards him, with her face twisted in a downcast and sad expression, and lunged at him. Before he knew what was happening, she was crying against his shoulder. He had hugged her once before, in an awkward attempt to comfort her when she was scared that he would die in battle, but right now he felt many times more awkward, as he had no idea about what could be wrong. Still, putting his arms around her and giving her a place to let out her sorrow was the only thing he could do until he figured out what had gotten into her. She looked a bit off after the battle, but what happened to make her cry like, oh, her sorrow and the battle were two facts which suddenly connected perfectly in his mind. He patted her on her back and sighed. The first time you kill someone is the hardest, Hinata-chan. Will it always feel like this? She stammered between sobs. I hope it does. Naruto knew it wasn't what she wanted to hear, but it was the brutal truth. When the Kyuubi tried to screw me over, I wasn't bothered in any way when I killed someone, he confessed. I felt justified by the knowledge that I ended another hateful existence. I sensed their intent, judged them, and executed them. But I was wrong. You showed me that people can change, Hinata-chan. You showed me that my sensory ability says nothing about how people can grow. He idly wondered if the fox made the same mistake in its thinking. That blind spot, that arrogant belief that this ability to sense someone's darkness gave them some sort of divine right to judge one's soul. It always hurts. I should hurt. So just cry until the pain lessens. You were there for me when I nearly lost my way, so I'll be here for you to keep you at the right path. Thanks. Head facing down, Unwilling to show him her tears, she nuzzled against his chest. If not for the situation, she could have died from embarrassment, but right now she just couldn't stop thinking about what she had done. The curse of the Byakugan was equal to its gift, was something Hitomi had once told her. And now she knew. There was nothing to hide in front of her eyes. She had seen how she had wounded her opponent, how his organs shut down one after another. She had seen his look of surprise through his mask, and finally, when both his heart and brain ceased to function, she had seen his body become completely motionlessly. He attacked, and I struck him, severed his spine, and the internal bleeding. You did what you had to, Naruto comforted her. If you had not acted, he could have killed you. Or Karen Nichan, or Kiba, or, well, you get my point. He left you no choice, it isn't your fault, so don't blame yourself. But, she hated herself for not being able to stop her weeping. This wasn't how an heiress was supposed to act. And she knew Naruto was right, she really knew. The logical part of her brain, at least. The other part just kept spouting an endless stream of, what if, scenarios. I used too much chakra. You're a human being, and no human is perfect. With all the training you've been subjecting yourself to lately, you never really noticed that your reserves have grown. But with the soldier pill, you suddenly had access to all of your chakra. Is it that surprising you miscalculated? Naruto spoke softly, as soothing as he thought was wise. In the back of his head he suddenly had to suppress a spark of laughter when he received the memories of his clone. Karen was still easy to get flustered whenever it concerned Kiba. It wasn't your intention, it was just an accident. Hinata trembled, but willed herself to stop sobbing. Not that she moved away from Naruto. She felt comforted by the sight of his chakra. It wasn't as massive as it used to, but still he had far more than a usual person. The true difference lay in the way his chakra felt. It wasn't as cold and unforgiving as it once was, full of an anger and rage that she thought was coming from the Kyuubi itself. Rather than the reddish hue it now was bright and warm. It was caring and comforting. The longer she remained silent, the more anxious he got, not knowing how to deal with this situation anymore. Hinata-chan. Reluctantly, she let him go, realizing that they indeed need to go back. But, well, he did say he was kinda taken. So why? No, she decided against it. She didn't think this would be a good moment to confess how and what if he turned her down? She was a murderer now. She was sure he must be seeing her in a different way now that she had done such a thing. As such, even though she followed him back to the group, she couldn't help but to grab his sleeve, clinging onto it as if it was the only thing that stopped her from falling through the ground into the deep recesses of hell. Despite his worry for her, Uzumaki Naruto was happy she trusted him this much. He was so focused on her, that he never noticed their sensei. A sensei who, despite everything that had happened, was smiling contently. Hiyashi would have had a heart attack if he had seen that, and I think Tsunade-sama would not have been far from it either, Kurenai mumbled to herself. Jiraiya-sama, on the other hand, he'd probably start writing another one of his smutty novels. They had all replenished their strength, eaten their fill, or slept a little, in Kiba's case. Apart from him, the shinobi were all good to go. Naruto created a few clones to carry the injured Inuzuka on the makeshift stretcher. Hinata was still rather silent, but she wasn't as downcast as before. On the other hand, she didn't go further than 3 meters from Naruto, ever. It wasn't long until they finally caught sight of their home, Konohagakure. Finally. Hopefully Katetsu and Azuma won't make too much of a fuss about our entering the village. I wanna go to Ichiraku's already. Naruto exclaimed. Ramen addict. Kurenai shook her head in exasperation. You do know that reporting back to the Hokage is our first priority, right? Especially considering the importance of our respective missions, Rado agreed. Speaking of which, did you even finish fixing all the barriers of the castle? He asked sheepishly, having forgotten to check up on that. I did, Naruto smirked. Except for the one in the basement, of course. Nor the prisons. Or do you want to run back to check, Rado? I'm not going all the way back there, Karen growled angrily. If you're going to make me run there, I'm going to make sure you're not getting any ramen for the rest of the year, Ni-san. Wow, that's excessive violence, Naruto whined. Let's hurry up. Report our stuff, give the old pervert those corpses and Fuka, and get something to eat. Seriously, can you not talk about ramen? Hiba groaned, still feeling sick from the poison. I was only kidding around, the Uzumaki laughed. Trying to lighten the mood a little didn't seem like a wrong thing to do. Idiot. What did you say, Mr. Puker? Not everyone can be freaking immune to poisons, Hiba bit back, embarrassed by his own moments of weakness. Why are there so many people at the gate? Hinata suddenly spoke up. That's Otu-sama. And Hokage-sama too. Even Tsunade-sama. Was Naruto's less than intelligent response. He had been thinking about how to best continue teasing Hiba, not about a possible welcoming committee. We're being welcomed back as heroes, Karen smiled proudly. Finally some credit for all our hard work. Nothing we did should be a cause for celebration. Last I checked Kisame did our job for us. Naruto scratched his chin, wondering what could cause so many people to be out there. That's what you reported, right? This isn't right. Rado turned to Kurenai, ignoring Naruto's question. What could have happened? I haven't gotten any messages. Kurenai was equally worried, but couldn't tell what was going on either. A terrified part of her mind whispered about a possibility that something could have happened to Asuma, but no, that wouldn't explain everyone to be here either. The closer they got, the more silent the crowd got, as if they were anticipating something big. Just when Kurenai wanted to step forward and ask what was going on, a dozen Anbu suddenly surrounded Naruto, weapons drawn and pointed at him. Hyuga Hiyashi walked forward, with a thunderous expression that promised a world of pain and suffering. No one had ever seen the man show such hatred, such unrestrained rage. Jiraiya and Tsunade followed, both having a conflicted expression which Kurenai couldn't understand. In the way they flanked Hiyashi, it almost seemed like they were prepared to restrain him. Uzumaki Naruto. Hiyashi spoke up, clearly stopping himself from attacking the confused boy. You are hereby arrested for the murder of Hyuga Hitomi. Bonus. S-class lingerie, too. Would you like to work in a shop? Anko smiled sweetly at the recently released woman. Rado-san said that I had to go to you, Fuka shrugged. Although I wonder if his command was wise. Don't act like the old hag you are, Anko chuckled. But you look hot, so you'll be perfect. Follow me. Rolling her eyes, Fuka had no choice but to follow. She wondered what the crazy woman was planning this time. But the command was absolute. This. Fuka frowned. This is the shop you want to open. They look just like professional models, don't they? Anko snickered. I wanted to offer you a job here. I know you're posing as a civilian, she nodded at Fuka, as you're someone who can't be a shinobi any longer. So I figured you'd like to have a job. As a whore. Fuka scowled. No, this is a lingerie shop, you baka. Anko gasped. I wouldn't abuse that seal of yours by turning you into a whore. Damn, what do you even think of me? You're asking me, after all the time I spent at that T&I department of yours. I'm not always like that, Anko huffed. Tormenting Rado-kun is a hobby. Tormenting everyone else is what I'm paid to do, but it isn't like I'm always like that. So, what is the point of this shop? Selling panties. Not just common panties. Lingerie. Luxurious, gorgeous, lovely lingerie. Hell, even Tsunade-sama sounded interesting in buying some. When I showed her the shop the other day, Anko walked to one of the posters where a particularly busty woman with long white hair and a wide smile was showing of her bra. Even for someone as gifted as Tsunade, I found the right stuff. With some help from Rado, she had gotten her hands on a nice shop in the main street of Konoha. Goading Jiraiya into becoming a poster girl, after having caught him in an attempt to spy on the hot springs, had also offered Anko the leverage needed on forcing the man to sign the permits quickly. He had been rather terrified when Anko proposed to tell Tsunade the truth. Somehow the blonde woman reminds me of someone, Fuka drawled. The white-haired woman, though. Her eyes are exactly like those of your godime, except for those red markings. But her shape is exactly like that of Tsunade-sama. What did you say? Tsunade was accidentally passing by, hearing her name. The liquor shop was next door, coincidentally. Well, not so much of a coincidence, perhaps. It was a store which Rado owned, and Anko loved alcohol, so the new shop had been more or less the first choice. That the picture of the white woman resembles you, Though her eyes make me think of the Godime, Fuka repeated herself calmly. She completely ignored Anko, who, from behind Tsunade, was wildly gesturing Fuka to stop talking. Far, far away, Uzumaki Naruto felt horribly ill. He kept sneezing, like the entire village was talking about him and not in the good way. For some reason he felt extremely nauseous about it. I've never seen you getting sick before, Jiraiya commented. I guess today's training is cancelled. Shame. I wanted to. Arrow Sennin. Naruto blinked, seeing the man suddenly getting pale and shiver. What's wrong? I don't know, kid. But I feel like something very bad just happened. I'd better go back for now. Say hi to Bachan for me. Oh, I'll definitely do that, Jiraiya smirked. A smile that would not last long once he got back to the village. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlists. Hope you would like them too.